All right, we're going to call the meeting to order, and want to thank all those who joined us for the September 7th, 2022 meeting of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors. And I know we have a good number of folks in the audience this morning, and I'm sure we'll have those that will join us throughout the course of the day as we move into the budget discussions and deliberations as we go forward. So again, I want to welcome all of you. Some of you, this may be your first time to join us here in these chambers, and obviously there's an issue that you want to address to the board. We have a number of folks that have signed to speak. So with that, let's go ahead and have the clerk call the roll, make some announcements, and then we'll talk about procedures. And those of you that are here on an item that's not on the agenda, but we will certainly give you the opportunity to be heard, we'll take that here in just a few moments. So with that, then I'll turn to Flo Evans, our clerk, and ask her to call the roll and to make some announcements. And we'll do this Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll get started. Thanks.
Good morning. Supervisors Cerna?
Here.
Kennedy? Here. Desmond? Here. Frost? Here. Natoli?
Here.
And you have a quorum. This meeting of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel, on the Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T UVerse cable systems. The meeting is closed caption and is webcast at metro14live.saccounty.gov. Today's meeting will be repeated Friday, September 9th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. The Board of Supervisors fosters public engagement during the meeting and encourages public participation, civility, and use of courteous language. The board does not condone the use of profanity, vulgar language, gestures, or other inappropriate behavior, including personal attacks or threats directed towards any meeting participant. In compliance with directives of the county, state, and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the meeting will be live streamed and open to public attendance pursuant to health and safety guidelines. The practice of social distancing and wearing of face coverings, mask, or shield is recommended for the health and safety of all persons participating in person during the meeting, although it is not required. Seating is limited and available on a first-come, first-served basis. Members of the public will be given 3 minutes to make a public comment and are limited to making one comment per agenda item or off-agenda matter. Please be mindful of the public comment procedures to avoid being interrupted or disconnected while making your comment. To make a comment in person, please fill out a speaker request form and hand it to clerk staff. The chairperson will open public comments for each agenda item or call for off-agenda matters. And when the chairperson calls your name, please come to the podium to make your comment. To make a comment by phone, dial 916-875-2500 and follow the prompts to be placed in queue for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter. Please refer to the agenda or watch the meeting to follow along to determine when is the best time to call to be placed in queue to make your comment. Clerk staff will transfer calls into the meeting accordingly. Each agenda item queue will remain open until the public comment period is closed for that specific item. You may be on hold for up to an extended period of time, and your patience is appreciated. You may also send written comments to email at boardclerk@saccounty.gov. Your comment will be routed to the board and filed in the record. If you need an accommodation pursuant to the Americans with Disabilities Act for medical or other reasons, please see clerk staff for assistance or contact the clerk's office at 916-874-5451 or by email at boardclerk@saccounty.gov. Thank you in advance for your courtesy and understanding of the meeting procedures.
Okay, thank you, Flo, for those announcements. So if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
And I would just want to make a couple of notes to reemphasize what the clerk read into the record, that I know we have a number of folks here this morning, and I trust we'll have those throughout the day. So I want to just say that as chair, I'm committed to affording time for public comment, and as we both consider the budget, but certainly our off-agenda comments. But just ask that those that are sign up to speak or come to the podium to limit your comments to 3 minutes. And of course, I'll be asking each speaker to try to stay within the time frame. Also, again, this is not all intended for folks here, but for anyone who joins us to, if you have strongly held views, certainly come express them at the podium, but please refrain from commenting in the chambers apart from the time at the podium. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started on, and we have a couple of quick action items on the consent calendar, and we can take those, and we'll go to the off. Then we'll take the off agenda. So.
Okay, go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
So you do have an addendum agenda. This is a resolution congratulating the Daughters of Utah Pioneers Sacramento Company on 50 years of stewardship of the Slough House Pioneer Cemetery. And then on your regular agenda, you also have one consent matter, request a 30-day renewal of proclamation of state of local emergency for the monkeypox. And I will need a motion to approve both items.
So moved.
Okay, moved and seconded. Was there anyone here that wished to address either one of those two items? I don't have anybody signed up on those items, so items 1 and 2? No?
I would like to.
Okay, sure. Yes, Supervisor Frost.
On the monkeypox item, I would like to go on record as voting no.
Okay. All right. So with that, then, if there's no one here on those items, do we have anybody on the phone flow for those items?
We do not.
Okay. So, all right. So items 1 and 2, motion made and seconded. And please note, well, it'll show up in the vote, but please vote.
Yes, and then vote for
Yeah.
Yeah. And note that Supervisor Frost voted no on item number 2 on the regular agenda.
Unanimous vote for the addendum, and let the record reflect that Supervisor Frost recorded a no vote for item number 2 on your regular agenda.
Okay, very good. All right, so we're going to go to our off agenda, and again, same courtesies are afforded relative to comments on off agenda items, and I know we have some folks here that wanted to speak on HealthNet. I also had a couple other folks that had signed up for off agenda items, so let me go to those two, and then we'll take the HealthNet folks in the order they were handed to me. So first, I would call on Mackenzie, and then Dan Adderholt. So Mackenzie.
I did practice this, and I think it was like 3.5 minutes. I'm going to try and run faster.
Okay, please.
Got you.
Good morning, Mackenzie.
Good morning, Board. My name is Mackenzie Wilson, and I come to you today as more than an organizer for Decarcerate Sacramento and the Sacramento Tenants Union, but in fact, just a member of this community. Fun fact about me is that before I was Radical Mac, I was on a track to be Reverend Mac. I mention this because recognizing the God in you actually leads me to stand here today. I mean, it's my recognition of that and it's all that leads me to do the work that stands with the hungry, the poor, and the incarcerated. And I don't think that you know that the people I run with are too, in fact, doing that very thing, yet our voices fall upon willfully deaf ears. Another fun fact about Mac and the folks I run with, one, students of social change are now analysts of it. Like literally, the economy, social movements, politics, like the actual science of its change. It's the changes in these things that have everyone flocking to your political arena as they make sense of the devastation around them. An analysis of these things is severely lacking from this place. And because they know not what they do isn't good enough for me, I've decided to bring you some of the lessons I have gathered thus far semi-regularly. Today's lesson is on decorum. You see, decorum is afforded to you and to society by means of social contracts, some through voluntary agreements, but in this economy and society, mostly by force. You can see it when almost every decision we make daily is based upon our ability to afford our survival. When the ability to participate in our very inaccessible democracy is if we can afford it, whether it's the gas, the parking, the ability to have a phone, computer, internet, the ability to sit for hours unpaid to give you our expertise. It is a very real thing, the inaccessibility to this democracy. And we will get into this in a later lesson, but the number of people who are not able to afford their survival is only going to get bigger. And as you continue to cop for capitalism, you are going to continue to uphold levels of state violence that chooses death. That choice was affirmed by the amount of voices and doctors that spoke weeks ago. This brings me to the social contracts. When you wield state violence on those who cannot afford your society, you break the social contract that affords you decorum. I mean, the contract was broken well before that. The number of people living outside, those living paycheck away, the number of black and brown bodies and poor people who die at the hands of law enforcement, the lack of education funding, the lack of housing, food access, mental health and substance use services, all things this democracy funded while beefing up the budgets of the palace guards, their jail cells, and weapons to enforce your decorum with. You continue to enact violence and break social contract that affords you decorum when you do not make decision and lawmaking spaces accessible to your most vulnerable populations. Another level and break when property and business owners are heard over our poorest. Overt violence and a middle finger every time you vote for a budget that prioritizes the palace and its guards over care and access to opportunity and choice. Simply your violence and the break in the social contract means that this gets worse. That means that as this gets worse, your democracy will no longer be afforded decorum. And because this is a lesson on social change, I have emailed you an article on a bill that Newsom is about to sign on how to keep people out of the democracy copying for capitalism in the name of decorum. The phenomena of people tired of being hungry, poor, and tired is happening across your country. Hell, it's even why far-right extremists and reactionaries, without any analysis of social change, charged your White House. A couple weeks ago, someone called in and said that homelessness was new, and I giggled at that. Before the socialist, but still capitalist and racist AF policies that brought us Social Security, minimum wages, public housing, racist Fannie Mae loans, public schools, libraries, and roads, they had us living in shelter shack and shanty towns, hungry, poor, and tired, which led to revolts and decorum going out the window. Cops in the Palace Guard were beefed up then too, killing movement leaders. They did it again in the 70s, and they're even doing it again now. Simply, I guess I'm saying that history does in fact repeat itself, and behind every major advancement were people who said, fuck decorum. I'll end with asking you, which side of history do you want to be on? You and your department heads. Do you want to make the transformational changes needed in your society, or do you want to continue to be a part of the violence that no one will ever apologize for defending themselves from? I'll see you soon for our next lesson.
Okay, thanks, Mackenzie. Okay, next, Dan Adderholt. Dan.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. I'm Dan Harold, CEO of American River Homes Group Nonprofit. I'm here today to bring attention to you guys some things that just need to be changed, period. I reached out to Emily Holkin. She helped me best she can find housing for our American River Homeless crews and the homeless on the American River Parkway. I found out a lot of things during the time I got hurt on the 2nd of September here as I'm home studying everything because I can't just sit around and do nothing. I found out that what looks good on paper is actually not what's in reality. And that's just politics, I guess. But, you know, I found out, thanks to Emily Holkin and everybody, that there is no emergency housing vouchers for anybody to use here in Sacramento. Even though it says online there's 251, I talked to several groups, thanks to Emily Holkin. She directed me who to talk to. I talked to these people and pretty much ran a rabbit down the hole. And once I got to the end of the hole, I found there was nothing there. And it's really sad because this has to do with family shelters for kids, the infants, and all this stuff. They're out here on the American River Parkway. Again, I reached out to Emily Holkin. She tried to help me best she can. But there's a law you guys passed that needs to change, a 2-week law, saying that you only can help families for only 2 weeks a year. 2 weeks a year, you mean after 2 weeks you're going to throw a woman and her children back on the streets when we're supposed to be helping them off the streets? I thought families come first. We were going to help, and then help the rest after. That is not the case here in Sacramento, I found out. It's sad because that rule needs to be changed where you can help the families get off the streets. What can you do in 2 weeks' time to help these family members off the streets? And for the homes, for my American Homeless crews that live on the American River Parkway, they're promised homes, not shelters. There's nothing for them to go to, I found out. It's just an empty rabbit hole. What about them and their pets that they were promised they got to keep? What about the homeless? I mean, why are they being discriminated when they only get allowed to keep one homeless pet or maybe 2? When the law of Sacramento says you could keep 4. I mean, everybody brought that up to Stern's attention on the 1st, and I appreciate you guys giving us the award for American River Homeless Crew. I want to thank you guys for that. We're very much appreciated for that, for a long, almost 10 years of cleaning the American River Parkway every day. But what I'm getting at is that there needs to be a change. The change needs to happen now. We got families out here with infants that live on the parkway, live in their cars in 115-degree temperature because there's nowhere for them to go. You say shelters. You do not want to put a woman in a shelter with her kids. There's pedophiles. There's, God knows, you name it, they're in there in these shelters. And for COVID, for crying out loud, in the VOA. I mean, they don't even do nothing about it. And you got COVID people in there. They should be quarantined or not. And this is a fact. This is what I already found out. What I'm getting to is we need to have a law change, but that you guys change this law. Please, Serna, and please, Desmond, Nolly, Kennedy, Frost, please change this law to help these single families out here on the parkway. This 2-week law needs to be changed. They need at least a month or 2 months to get back on their feet, at least get a job, or they get at least have some type of place to go to. You know, 2 weeks, you can't do nothing to get back on your feet at all. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, thank you to Dan McKenzie. So now we have a number of folks that have signed up on the HealthNet item, and so I'm going to go ahead and call these the way they were handed to me. So I have Monique Johnson, Nazanin Arab, and Danielle Henderson, the first three that I have. So, Monique?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
For those that are expecting to testify on the balance of off-agenda items, perhaps it's just a good time to remind folks that we can't discuss and act on off-agenda matters.
Right. Good point. Again, we will be able to hear folks relative to the issue. And again, some of you, this may be your first time to the board, maybe not at the board meeting. We will be able to, again, listen. Certainly, some of the questions you pose, we certainly can, refer back through our administrative staff. But it's not an action item today, and I think you understand that. But certainly, you're going to, put your concerns forward, and we will listen to those and see if we can assist. But there's no action on this item today. So, anyway, is it Monique? Is that? No? Monique? Okay. Was there a particular order you wanted to be heard in? I don't know who.
Actually, I'm not an Arab. This is Monique. We are both from the same clinic talking about.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and talk? Okay, and then Danielle will follow. So, okay, all right. Very good.
So, my name is Nazanin Arab, and this is Monique Johnson. We are from Greater Sacramento Pediatrics. We serve about 2,000 patients, medical patients, and we have all kind of plans in our practice. But we heard about the HealthNet that was voted out, and we would like to actually make a comment about how HealthNet has always helped with our practice. They have really programs that help the children, during the we have signed up with them to do the back-to-school immunization campaign. We've done a lot of that in our practice because of their effort. No other plan has done that for the medical community. They have signed us up with COSIVA, which is a platform to make sure all children receive their immunizations and anything necessary for their well-being. They actually have, during the COVID-19 time, they have helped us with the PPE. They have helped us with, bringing. When there was no mask to be found anywhere in the market, they brought the children masks to our office. They brought the hand sanitizers. They always have been there for us. Even though our contract with them is through IPAs, they are always willing to help with the, with the referrals, to make sure that the children are receiving all kind of help from them. As far as the referring to the right provider and things like that. So I just wanted to let you know that how different they are in comparison to the other plans in this community. And
also, HealthNet has been very helpful with providing tools and measures for HEDIS as well. To basically keep our patients and our children up to date with immunizations and well child exams as well. Where other plans, we don't get those tools, and so HealthNet has been very helpful with that as well.
So we would like to put our experience with HealthNet, and thank you guys for listening to us.
Okay, thank you, Monique. Thanks, Nazir.
Thanks.
Yep. And as Danielle's coming forward, I just would note that, and maybe this is known to all of you, that the State Department of Health Services obviously has made they're the ones that award the contracts for the managed care plans. And this county for more than 25 years has been geographically managed care program. And I know that there were 5 or 6 providers, and now they're recommending to reduce that to 2, and then with the addition of, I guess, Kaiser having a separate contract statewide. And we've received comments from a number of folks, both clients and patients, as well as obviously some of the providers. Those we heard from a couple just now, but a wide range of those from throughout the community. And so, again, I know that we've all received that correspondence. I think some of us have. I know that I've sent correspondence to the state asking for them to consider certainly the points of view that will be expressed here today, but those that we've received in writing. So, Danielle, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to just point that out, that I know that we've been getting quite a flood of information from folks here in recent days. So, Danielle, go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
My name is Danielle Henderson, and I am the Vice President of Customer Experience for HealthNet. In our Member Services Contact Center, we are proud to employ in just that department almost 500 employees that live and work in the Sacramento area. And of those 500 employees, almost 50% of them are in leadership roles and started out in our entry-level positions. We're creating career paths for people through our employment there. So not only are we servicing the community through our insurance offerings and servicing the members in a health way, we also are creating employment in Sacramento, and we're excited about that. We're excited to be creating a pathway for extended employment. Just today I brought with me people from my team. Some of them have been working with HealthNet for 30 plus years, and they're in leadership roles, and they came in through these call center positions. We're excited to be delivering the loved one level of care to each member and to be dedicated to that. And those numbers that we represent don't even talk about the number of people who've promoted into other departments within the company, right? And so with that, not only are we excited to serve in Sacramento as a health insurer and an employer, but we really want to be considered an employer of choice here and to remain an employer of choice. So this is an important path for us. I really just wanted to show up today and thank you all for supporting HealthNet. We know that many of you have already signed letters, to your point, asking the state to reconsider, and we want to continue to serve the people of Sacramento. And I hope that the state gives us this opportunity, because we know that this partnership in the state of Sacramento is critical, both as an employer and a servicer of its members. Thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thank you, Danielle. Okay. Next following Danielle is Roman Romano, and then Carrie Lee Padnauro. You'll have to correct me. I'm sorry, Carrie Lee, and then followed by Ramiro Zuniga. So, good morning. Romano.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Roman Romasa. I'm Executive Director of Slavic Assistance Center, and I have great privileges today speaking for behalf of our community as well our agency. Let's speak a little bit about our community. We have in Sacramento area over 150,000 new arrivals, refugees and immigrants, and we have developed great relationship and partnership with HealthNet over 15 years, and we did numbers of workshops, campaigns like immunization, and we develop a network with churches as well as schools and businesses. So, and I heard we have some problem now kind of continue finding HealthNet, so we are asking to continue funding HealthNet and continue to work together to serve our community, as well work together with Board of Supervisors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roman. I want to just thank Roman for his work. I know for many years you've been working in the community to assist certainly new arrivals to our community, and certainly you and your colleagues, and we appreciate that, Roman, so thank you for your work. Okay, Carrie Lee, you're going to have to correct me, and I'll let you broadcast to the world. I mispronounced your name, I'm sure, so go ahead.
That's right. Everybody gets it wrong. No worries.
You got to say it. Let me hear it.
My name is Carrie Lee Patnode.
Patnode, okay, got it, very good.
And I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I work on our care management team at HealthNet. My job and the jobs of the people I work with is to connect people to care when they need it, especially those with multiple health conditions. I'm very proud of the work that we do for the County of Sacramento. We help keep people out of the ERs and put them on the path to better health. I want to share an example of a couple young women who we recently helped. They're both under the age of 21 and both had severe eating disorders. We worked with the county to find residential treatment facilities to help these two young women. Without that intervention, it's likely they would have ended up in the ER, needing supplemental nutrition and medical intervention. And in the worst case scenario, the severe eating disorders could have led to death. At HealthNet, we provide care to approximately 132,000 medical members in Sacramento County. HealthNet has built a strong and collaborative partnership with county departments and local organizations, and I worry that without HealthNet remaining in Sacramento, many of our members will slip through the cracks and not get the support and advocacy for the level of care that they need. We have built relationships with the enrollees that we serve, and that trust wasn't immediate or automatic. Eliminating that connection with medically fragile people will lead to delayed or missed care for those who need it most. And last, I would like to thank the Board of Supervisors for their support of HealthNet, and I hope that the state gives us the opportunity to continue working in Sacramento. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Good morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
Ramiro Zuniga. I'm a medical director with HealthNet, and I work out of the new Centene and HealthNet offices in Natomas. HealthNet, as you mentioned earlier, has been serving the community, the medical patients in the community, for over 25 years. And as a primary care provider, I have also been serving the patients, medical patients from the surrounding areas for over 25 years. I joined HealthNet because I wanted to help larger groups of people. I wanted to improve the health of entire populations. And after many years in practice, I realized in order to make sustainable and significant improvements in the health of entire populations, we need to address not just their health needs, we need to address their social needs. And at HealthNet, we do that every day. We help address the health and social needs of people like Michael, not his real name. We called Michael after he visited a local emergency room. He had back surgery, he was having severe back pain. And unfortunately, Michael lost his insurance card because of his circumstances, and lost his primary care provider's phone number and name. Michael is homeless. Michael is living in a motel with his wife and 3 young children. And on top of that, his work hours were cut because of the pandemic. Our teams reached out to Michael. We got him a new insurance card. We helped him get appointments with his primary care provider and arrange for transportation for his physical therapy appointments and for his medical appointments. We also connected Michael with our case management team and with community resources to address his needs for both employment and housing. And this is just one example of our work. Like Erilee before me mentioned, we have countless examples of our work in the community. Our work in Sacramento improves the health of this community, one person at a time. I want to thank the supervisors for the support of HealthNet. Thank you for signing the letters asking the state to reconsider their decision. We want to continue to serve the people of Sacramento. I hope that the state gives us that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, next I have Catherine Mesquita and then Allison Von Horn. And those are the last two. So if there are other folks on the HealthNet issue that are in chambers that wish to speak, if you'll get the form to the clerk's representative in the back, we'll make sure we call upon you. But otherwise, you're the last two on this particular item, at least in chambers. So, Catherine.
Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Catherine Mesquita. I'm a pharmacist. I actually trained here in Sacramento at UC Davis Medical Center for my residency, and I've lived in Sacramento for 23 years now. Obviously, I work at HealthNet, and I'm in the Quality Improvement Department. I'm extremely proud of my team and the work that we've done in the community here. You've heard several of the providers talk about the work that we do, and it resonates very well with me because several years ago, for example, in the Slavic community, we noticed that there was a 1% childhood immunization rate. specifically in the Russian-speaking community. And so we convened a community impact council to get input from the community to understand what would be the best way to intervene and improve immunization rates. Using those recommendations from that council, we created a Slavic public service announcement for the radio and funded a Russian-speaking coordinator for vaccine care to get patients into the clinic. And in 2 years, we increased that 1% to 43% childhood immunization rates. We also started something that we call Quality Edge, which is a way for us to work very specifically with the providers in the community to overcome what barriers to care they have in their practices. And just in the last year alone, my department has provided about $220,000 in grants to these providers to purchase things like smart blood pressure monitors that allow them to remotely monitor blood pressure for their patients, via the internet, or provide kits for colorectal cancer screening, because we know that the provider talking to the patient has a much better chance of getting them to follow through with that care. So giving them those items at the point of service so they can give them to the patients, follow through on that, has made a big difference. We've funded high-low tables for our wheelchair-bound members so that they can get cervical cancer screenings, so we can actually lower those exam tables. Not every provider has those. And so we are very thankful for the letters of support that you've given to the state to help overturn this decision. My team is very committed to the work that we do, and we would really like to continue doing that. It's a very fulfilling job, and I'm very thankful for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, Allison, good morning.
Good morning. Hello, my name is Allison Von Horn, and I've been a HealthNet employee for 7 years. My relationship with HealthNet goes back a bit further than that, though. I first became a HealthNet member 15 years ago when I went to work for the University of California in San Francisco. At the time, I was unfamiliar with HealthNet, had never heard of them. But I knew that the University of California put their trust in HealthNet to provide for their employees, so I put my trust in HealthNet. Turns out that trust was really well placed. HealthNet was there for me when my son was born. HealthNet was there for me when I needed 2 surgeries to reconstruct my ankle. And HealthNet was there for me countless other times when I needed a safety net. So when I moved to Sacramento, I was really excited at the opportunity to come work for HealthNet. I knew this company so well, and I knew the way that they cared for their members. I knew that that was a company I wanted to come and work for. Today, I work in compliance. My team makes sure that new laws and regulations are understood and adhered to. I also volunteer my time with our employee inclusion groups to provide resources and support to our LGBTQ+ employees, and to foster and promote volunteerism within our community to support other LGBTQ residents and community organizations. We take a lot of pride in the work we do at HealthNet because we know how important it is to build our trust with our members and maintain that trust throughout our entire community. Caring for the people of Sacramento County is at the heart of what HealthNet does because we are parts of this community. I know many of you have signed letters of support to the state as we request them to reconsider the Medi-Cal awards. I want to thank you so much for that. It is truly incredible to feel that kind of support come from this body. I hope the state will see fit to reconsider their decision because I know HealthNet cares about this county and about the people that live here. Thank you.
Thanks, Allison. Okay, thank you to all our speakers. Was there anyone else who had intended to speak that didn't sign a form, though? So Well, again, obviously a lot of important people in this room. All of you who do that work, and several of you who spoke certainly gave some good examples of the people that are served certainly by HealthNet in ways that you serve them and make a difference in their quality of their life, but certainly as it relates to their health care in particular. I don't know. Do we have anybody on the phone then?
We do. We have about 5 callers on the phone.
Okay, you're welcome to stay. We're going to hear those callers in. We'll go ahead and go to those callers.
Okay, great. Please transfer the caller. Hi, caller. Please start with your comments. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Troy Schaffner. I'm a Sacramento County resident, and I live over near Elder Creek and South Watt Avenue. I own some property there. Across the street from me is a very large homeless encampment. It's been there for a few years. We have countless problems every day, horrific things happening right in front of us all the time. My main concern is the 500 acres of grass that surround my property and are adjacent to this homeless encampment. They light fires constantly. I've seen them burn their encampment down multiple times with 40-foot inferno. Extremely intense, warming me as I stand in my yard. This weekend we had 2 fires. On Monday night, there was a large grass fire that caught the field on fire. Luckily, the fire department showed up about 10 minutes later and was able to get it put out. And then previous to that, there was Saturday night was another large grass fire. Same thing. The fire department came and put it out. And we noticed these things by our room lighting up from the glow of these fires. And once we go out into our backyards, we can feel the heat, and we're engulfed in smoke. I don't see how this isn't a danger to our community, let alone my family. It really is just that, my family, and there's nothing that I can do about this. So I'm trying to get some help. I've been trying for 2 years now, and this is just another effort, shot in the dark, and hopefully you guys can help me. My son is 11, or was 11 when we moved in. He's 13 now, and he lives in a homeless encampment. The things that he's encountered, some pretty wild things. And, I've clearly failed him by having this property and having him be involved with these incidences. So hopefully I can get some help on. I want this encampment removed. I see options. There's one on Florin that I drive by, or whatever we can get done. Anything. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The more I try, the more effort I put in, it just seems to get worse. So hopefully you can help me out. It's on Elder Creek and South Watt Avenue.
Great. Troy, if you're still on the line, I know that both Supervisor Cerna and I are very familiar. We actually share the area. The South Watt is the dividing line between District 1 and District 5, and certainly we've heard, I know that both his office and my office have been involved in numerous conversations relative to the situation, and certainly some of the most recent incidents. I know that my office, and I trust Supervisor Cerna, has received some clips of the videos of the fire that were taken by neighbors, and so we are working with our social service providers, our homeless outreach folks, and others to try to certainly address the situation there in a way that obviously comports with compassionate approach that stays certainly within the parameters of the law, but also recognizes some of the situation that you folks and you just described very clearly have experienced certainly recently with regards to fires and other things that are going on there. So I don't know, Supervisor Cerna, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the caller taking the time to call in this morning and remind us about the circumstance out at that location. I would like to suggest that you and I and our county CEO, our Director of Homeless Services, Siobhan Qatari, meet in the near future and figure out a plan here, because this is just continuing to be a untenable circumstance out there. And I agree with you. I think anything that we do to provide some assistance has to be two-pronged. It has to be ensuring that we have a place for folks to go. We have to make sure that they're offered the services that they need. But at the same time, it is, as you know, Mr. Tolley, it's a very unsafe situation. DOT should be in that meeting as well. We've looked at and asked for, at least our office has asked for, perhaps a solution that might involve putting K-rail up and perhaps keep, to keep folks from entering the travel lanes. But this is, as the speaker mentioned, just becoming more and more dangerous, whether it's the fire threat or the threat of people being injured, because it is close to a pretty active thoroughfare. So I'd like to suggest that be the follow-up and look for a nod of affirmation from our CEO that they agree.
Okay.
So.
Thanks, Mr. Cerna. And Mr. Shafter, if you wanted to, you don't need to put it over the airways, leave your phone number with the clerk so that we could, follow up with you as well. I know we've heard from, and you may have very well contacted our office, but I know that we have heard from some of the residents out there, so we'll try to keep you apprised of what, action may be taken, and certainly you would be witness to that, obviously, as time passes. So thanks again for your call.
I appreciate it.
You bet. And I'm fine with meeting Mr. Cerna, so we can arrange that. Madam Clerk, do we know if the callers are calling about the health net item? Because I didn't want to hold folks if we have other items being commented. Do we know what the folks are calling in on the office?
We don't.
Okay. So let me just take a pause then, and maybe the board members will want to, again, we can't take any action as explained earlier, but if there was any comments, before we get far beyond that subject, I just want to ask if there was any commentary that board members wanted to in response to what we heard here today, and recognize no action can be taken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to express my thanks to everyone that's in a pink or a black shirt here that came to address the board. It sounded to me like it was more expression of thanks, and we appreciate that. As the chair mentioned, of course, it is a State Department of Healthcare Services that makes the decision. It certainly doesn't mean that we can't use our meager bully pulpits to affect perhaps reconsideration of their selection. And it doesn't necessarily, my understanding is it doesn't necessarily have to come with any losers, that the Department of Healthcare Services could choose to have 3 providers, and therefore HealthNet, I think, could be reasonably reconsidered in that context. So I think your advocacy here this morning is important. I think it sends the right message. I think it's reasonable, everything that's been communicated by the folks that decided to address us this morning. I was one of the signers of the letter, at least the one that Supervisor Desmond and I submitted together. And certainly look forward to, as you probably all do, the next step, which would be the state responding to those letters and to your very concerted advocacy. So thank you.
Thanks so much, sir. Yeah, and I understand there is a formal appeal process. Obviously, HealthNet officials know what that is. And one of the things that was pointed out, I think it's important to note, too, that again, obviously many of you are providers and partners in provision of services and helping people get connected to and getting access to health care and overseeing, obviously, the program elements. but as I understand it, there are almost 150,000 people Medi-Cal eligible that are enrolled in the HealthNet plans currently. So that's a significant number of Sacramentans, many of whom would otherwise be underserved or unserved potentially. And I understand the process is to migrate folks over the course of the next couple of years to other health plans, but I think the relationships that were spoken here today are certainly important ones, and they've certainly, spoken to the quality of life for folks and how you've assisted people in different ways. So, Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll just briefly underscore the comments of my colleagues here and thank all of you for being here today. I've certainly seen firsthand the great work that HealthNet does in the community, especially in the communities most in need in Sacramento County. So thank all of you. I know a few of you. I see Martha out there, a friend of mine from many, many years ago. But I also told Darcy, I hope you'll all be taking this advocacy over to the Capitol. And I know they're not in session right now, but they do have offices open, and try to convince the folks at the state level to listen to you and hopefully respond and consider adding a third plan in Sacramento County. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Well, again, you're free to stay with us if you'd like. I know you've got. I guess there's a rally scheduled for 11 o'clock, but it's cooler in the chambers. It's 100+ degrees probably outside right now. So you're welcome to stay. We're going to continue to take off-agenda comments and then get into our budget presentation. So if you'd like to stay with us, please do. So, okay, with that, back to our callers.
Okay, next caller, please. Hi, caller. Please start with your comments.
Hi, my name is Larissa Kravchuk, and I'm the administrator for Manzanita Medical Clinic. And we've been in the partnership with HealthNet for more than 20 years, and we are serving more than 7,000 patients in Sacramento County. And I just want to say the huge impact of HealthNet in the community is unmeasurable, and I can believe it that they can be done because they serve a huge Russian, Ukrainian population. We've been working on a lot of different pilot projects on cancer screening, like breast cancer and cervical cancer screening. During the pandemic, the value in the community was unmeasurable. So I just really, really will hope that you guys will consider it and keep the HealthNet in the community.
Thank you, caller.
Okay, next caller. Hi, caller. Please start with your comments. You have 3 minutes.
All right. Hi. My name is Dr. Richard Gould, and I'm a pediatrician in Sacramento and Folsom area. The past probably 38, 39 years that I've been in practice, it's been a lot of iterations of Medi-Cal, and certainly the geographic managed care has been fairly successful, I think, and we work in a sort of community-based practice. So in other words, we're not necessarily dependent upon like the Dignity Health or Sutter or Kaiser, but we have community-based, so we see patients from all different insurances, all different walks of life, and we depend upon the relationships within that interdependent web to provide the support and services that we need to take care of all of our patients, including the Medi-Cal patients. And one of the things that's happened is that we aggregate into practice associations. So we're strongly committed to both Sutter independent physicians, but also Hill independent physicians. And Hill Physicians Medical Group has been very supportive and helpful in managing our Medi-Cal patients, which are HealthNet based, and really provide a good specialty basis. So one of the problems is that when you narrow down from, let's say, 3 or 4 different geographic groups to only 1 or 2, it doesn't really, it's not so much the primary care part of it, but the specialty panels become impacted. And once that happens, the length of time for different procedures become prolonged, not only for the Medi-Cal patients, but for the private pay and private practice patients or commercial patients as well. So right now, there's a broad representation of support, and we get not only the patients from Medi-Cal, but we get a lot of case management and support placing those patients into things like mental health services, which we won't get, and when you narrow that down to maybe one or two providers. So that's my biggest issue, is that we really need to maintain a diversity of resources and access to those resources, and these type of activities do narrow down access to those resources for all of our patients, not only the Medi-Cal, but commercial as well. So there's implications, I think, that go far beyond just the Medi-Cal, Medicaid population.
Great. Well, thank you, Dr. Gould, for calling in and sharing that with us. We appreciate your comments. And that applause was for you. Okay.
Next caller, please. Hi, caller. Please start with your comments. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Willard, and I'm the Chief Public Affairs Officer for the Greater Sacramento Economic Council. As a leading economic development group for the state capital of California, we spent countless months working to bring HealthNet Centene, a Fortune 30 company, to locate its West Coast headquarters in Natomas, as you know, anchoring 3,500 jobs in our region. We are asking Sacramento County Supervisors to support HealthNet Centene with their state contract after making a significant investment in our community. Since 2017, HealthNet has invested over $6.2 million in Sacramento's healthcare community. These investments help to advance health equity, workforce development, access quality, community enrichment, and infrastructure. This healthcare company serves 129,000 Medi-Cal enrollees in Sacramento County and over 1 million in Los Angeles County. Please, we are asking for our local leaders to step up to save these jobs in our community and healthcare for hundreds and thousands of people. Again, we appreciate everyone's leadership on the board of Sacramento County Supervisors. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. Okay,
next caller.
Next.
Hi, caller. Please start with your comments. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, this is PJ. I'm calling regarding a quote that I saw in the District 4 newsletter regarding homelessness. The quote goes, "Now these all seem like fairly obvious things, and you're likely wondering why these were not already illegal and why it's taken until now to crack down on this. It all stems from a ridiculous Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision back in 2018, which declared that local governments cannot enforce anti-camping ordinances if they do not have enough homeless shelter beds available for their homeless population. So these things were illegal locally, but were then overridden due to a court decision." This is an excerpt from that newsletter. And then it goes on to say, "Throwing money at the problem is clearly not working. But you've never thrown money at the problem, not in a thoughtful way that actually speaks to the needs of those in the unhoused community. Instead, politicians frequently will dole out cash to friends and family who operate services which could potentially assist unhoused people. But then the problem never gets solved because those people have a profit motive, even if they are a nonprofit, as they still get income that pays their bills from these contracts. So no, you haven't actually talked to unhoused people and given them the resources that they say they need. You say you consider drugs, alcohol, mental health as the root cause of homelessness, yet many tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people deal with the same issue yet remain housed. Why? Do you ever look at the data? You have an entire infrastructure in place to ensure that you can have the data to make informed decisions, and yet you go off your feelings. Feelings, Sue. I prefer facts over feelings, and your feelings aren't facts. And last time I checked, you spend 1,000 times more on incarceration than you do on health services. The services which would stem the flow of unhoused, stem the tide of crime, but we see where you prioritize investment in punishment, not prevention. If a daughter gets raped by her father and she leaves because she's afraid, and rightfully so, where does that fit in under drugs, alcohol, or mental health as the cause? Because while it may be the father has previously undealt with trauma, and that would be the mental health, your assertion is that it's the unhoused people that have these issues. Now, she may develop mental health issues because she's living on the street without adequate assistance from the county. She may develop a drug addiction to help to not think about it and to deal with the repercussions mentally from it. But neither of those is causative. So do your fucking research and get facts, not your feelings. This is why we need more funding to health services. The Ninth Court ruling found that it is cruel to tell someone to move when they have no place to go to. And your take on this was that that was ridiculous. Sue, where do people go if they get moved from everywhere? Where, Sue? That's the cruel and unusual part. It's cruelty to ask them to move and have no options for where to move to. And no, just not here isn't a viable solution because it doesn't give them a safe place to go to. As usual, with many conservatives, all you do is bitch about what is happening with no solution. That's you. You're full of no solutions. You're useless because you will never offer anything better. You will just bitch about what is happening. Fund health services. Thank you.
Thank you, PJ.
That's your last caller.
Okay, that's the last off-agenda caller. And again, I want to thank certainly our callers as well as those that were here in the chambers and spoke as well. So with that, we're going to go into our budget hearing. Again, you're welcome to stay, but if not, you have a good rest of the day and stay cool. So we'll give just a moment, allow chambers to empty. Okay, Madam Clerk, we'll go ahead and call the next item, please.
Okay, for item number 3, you are acting as the In-Home Supportive Services Public Authority. This is to approve the Sacramento County In-Home Supportive Services Public Authority fiscal year 2022-23 final budget.
Okay, Mr. Kozitsa, John here. Right
on cue.
Right on cue. Okay, John, we're ready. Didn't even give it a chance to get your bearings.
Surprisingly on cue.
Oh, okay, on delay mode. Good morning, John.
Good morning. Welcome. It's a very busy morning. My name is John Kozitsa. I'm the Executive Director for the In-Home Supportive Services Public Authority. And I'm here this morning to request your approval for the 2022-23 IHSS Public Authority's recommended budget in the amount of $3,385,952 as presented on Attachment A. The requested budget is a normal year-end adjustment, nothing big, resulting from the closing of financial records. So with that, I'd like to request your boards adopt the fiscal year 22-23 recommended budget as presented on Attachment A. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer those.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, John. Mr. Cerner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we don't have any public speakers on the item and there's no further questions or comments by my colleagues, I'd like to move the item.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay. Let me ask, do we have any callers? I don't have anybody signed up. I have folks signed up on item 4, but no one here on item 3. Anyone wish to address item 3?
Yeah, we do not have any callers.
Okay. All right. Then if there's no further comments, we do have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Great. Thank you, John. Thank you. Okay.
All right. For item 4, you're acting as the Board of Supervisors on the public hearing on and consideration of possible revisions to the fiscal year 2022-23 approved recommended budget.
Okay, very good. With that, I will turn to our County Executive, Ann Edwards, and I know that Amanda's going to make a presentation as well. So, Ann.
Yes. Good morning, Chair Natoli and members of the board. Ann Edwards, County Executive. I am pleased to be here before you today to recommend our 2022-23 revised budget. Ms. Thomas will be addressing the details with you, but I do want to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Thomas and her team for their exemplary work in putting this together. It is, I know you know this, but it's a heavy lift, and they have done a great job. I also want to thank department heads for their thoughtful recommendations on the needs of their departments. As you know, there's always more to do, and they have done a great job of being really thoughtful in their recommendations. I also want to thank the Deputy County Executives because they do a lot of heavy lifting prior to being here today, and frankly, they make my piece of this job much easier. So I want to thank all of them. And I just want to add that I think you should be really proud of the leadership team of the county, the department heads and the deputy county executives that you all have appointed and put in place. We have a really remarkable team, and I'm sure proud of all of them as well. Finally, I don't want to steal Ms. Thomas's remarks, but I feel compelled to mention that this is a balanced budget working towards meeting both the current needs of the community with the ability to sustain what we are now putting in place for the future. I know you're not surprised, but you will see a recommendation for a significant increase in reserves to address the recession that some say we are already in, and most certainly is coming. So I will now turn it over to Ms. Thomas to make the budget presentation.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Amanda.
Good morning, Chair Natoli, board members. I'm Amanda Thomas, the county's Chief Fiscal Officer, and I'm here today to present the fiscal year 2022-23 revised recommended budget. Before I get started, I'd like to just echo the thanks that Ann shared and really acknowledge and thank everyone who's contributed to preparing the budget. That includes department directors and fiscal staff. Ann, who thanked everybody but herself, includes Ann, and the rest of the executive team, and really the amazing team of analysts and support staff in our office, without whom this just would not be possible. So a big thank you from me to the entire county budget team. And I wanted then to next sort of start off by stepping back a bit to talk about the budget overall, and not just the changes that will be discussed today. So this slide should look familiar because it's the same slide that was presented in June with the recommended budget. And really that's the point, that the revised recommended budget continues to accomplish everything that in the approved recommended budget and then some. It continues to reflect a balanced approach to addressing community needs, both in the current fiscal year and over the longer term. It's driven by board priorities for the use of discretionary resources that are based on the community's priorities gathered through outreach and a scientific public opinion poll. And the substantial new investments aligned with those priorities include continued funding and progress on new initiatives that were included in last year's budget, new and enhanced programs included in the approved budget, and additional enhancements included in the revised recommended budget. And as Ann said, all of these new program investments are then balanced with meaningful reserve contributions to support the county's ability to continue delivering services in future years. So as you know, the recommended budget for fiscal year 22-23 was approved in June, and the purpose of the revised recommended budget is really to reflect changes based on new information available. Those changes include rebudgeting of grants and projects not completed in fiscal year 2021-22, adjustments to personnel costs resulting from negotiated labor agreements, budgeting of revenue and expenditures for American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, projects approved by the board after the June budget approval, including the Phase 2 ARPA projects approved in July. Other new state and federal funding and associated expenditures, updated estimates of discretionary and semi-discretionary revenues based on revised assumptions and actual results, and actual ending fund balances, including for the general fund. Looking at the all funds budget, appropriations across all funds total $7.9 billion, which is a $540 million increase compared to the approved budget. This includes a $228 million increase in general fund appropriations, which I'll address on a later slide, and a combined $313 million increase for other funds. Of the $313 million other funds increase, $88 million is for additional appropriations in the semi-discretionary restricted funds, which represents transfers into the general fund to reimburse eligible expenditures. I'll also explain this further on a later slide. $222 million represents base budget changes in other funds, and $3 million represents other fund appropriations associated with new recommended growth. Across all funds, appropriations for approved ARPA projects not already reflected in the approved budget account for $95 million of the total increase in appropriations. Of the $7.9 billion in total appropriations, about $2 billion represents reimbursements or transfers between and within county funds, meaning that net budgeted expenditures total about $5.9 billion. The chart on this slide shows how those net appropriations or net financing uses are budgeted by functional area, with social services departments and programs representing the largest share of budgeted spending at 36%, followed by community services at 26%, and then public safety and justice at 18%. Administrative services and functions represent 12% of net appropriations, and general government functions account for 8%.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So, Amanda, relative to this chart, for those that may not know what constitutes social services or community services, can you just, for the public's benefit, can you maybe just give some examples?
Certainly. So in social services would include Department of Health Services, Department of Human Assistance, other child, family, adult services, other departments within the social services agency. Community services would be primarily departments within that agency, which includes regional parks, includes waste management, water resources. So those are some examples.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Good.
So turning now to look just at the general fund, consistent with the budget approval in June, the revised recommended general fund budget prioritizes the growth that was identified and also prioritizes increasing reserves. As I'll discuss later, additional priority enhancements are also recommended for funding. We're able to fund this additional growth and also provide for increased reserves because we have both an increase in discretionary resources available and an overall decrease in discretionary resources required. This is because the $228 million increase in general fund appropriations is more than offset by a $176 million increase in departmental funding and an $88 million increase in semi-discretionary reimbursements, as I'll discuss in more detail on a later slide. While the general fund budget continues to be balanced with one-time resources, this overall reduction in discretionary resources required, or what we also call net county cost, results in less reliance on one-time resources to balance the budget compared to the approved budget and also compared to recent prior year budgets. So this slide illustrates the availability and use of general fund discretionary resources. At the top, we show discretionary resources available, which include both one-time fund balance and ongoing revenues. The actual beginning general fund balance is $36 million higher than was estimated for the approved budget, resulting in additional one-time resources available. Discretionary revenue and reimbursements, which are largely ongoing resources, are estimated to be $10 million higher than estimated for the approved budget, primarily as a result of increased property tax revenue estimates based on actual assessed property values. Together, the sum of these two, fund balance and discretionary revenues, must equal the use of discretionary resources, which includes both net county cost, or expenditures funded with discretionary resources, and reserve contributions. So as described on the previous slide, due to departmental and semi-discretionary revenue increases greater than the increase in general fund appropriations, net county cost in the revised recommended budget is less by $36 million than was the case in the approved budget, for total net county cost of $896 million. The combination of increased discretionary resources and a decrease in net county cost results in an additional $82 million available to set aside in reserves for future year spending. You can see, looking at the numbers in the orange boxes, that the $896 million in net county cost, or expenditures funded with discretionary resources, is greater than the $826 million of discretionary revenues by about $70 million, which means that we are budgeting to spend more money than we are bringing in, with $70 million of fund balance or prior year savings being used to fund 2022-23 expenditures, and the remaining $175 million of fund balance being put into reserves to be available for future year expenditures.
Amanda, while you're on that point, historically, though, that's the way counties, at least this county, is operated. It may not be by choice. It's not the finance person or county execs necessarily best take on it, but that's what we've done because, again, our revenues do run the ups and downs, and you never know what you're going to have at the end of the year. As you true it up, though, you get a picture of it. But this is actually an improvement over years past as we've worked our way out of the hole that we certainly came out of the recession when we went deeply in not only into reserves but into other accounts and borrowed heavily to sustain county services for the part that we could, going back to 2009, 10. 8, 9, 10, I guess even 11 a bit budgets. So this is an improvement. I mean, obviously it's an accurate portrayal, but it's a circumstance, and certainly Ann alluded to in her comments. I mean, it's the rainy day set-asides, and it's still not perfectly aligned. But again, I guess I would say when in the last 25 years have we had a budget that showed that. Sometimes we did some financing that may have shown an offset, but in years to come we had to pay that back. So I guess any commentary again, this is year into your second, now going third year on budget, and again it's a better picture, but this isn't uncommon in the sense of the way the county has traditionally conducted its budget review and approvals and adoptions.
Yeah, thank you. Great question, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I think it is not out of practice for the county's budget to be balanced with one-time resources. And I think you're also right that we are making an improvement in this budget compared both to the June budget and to the last couple of fiscal years in terms of the reliance on one-time resources to balance the budget. So I think, while the budget is balanced, right, as required by law, because our resources equal our requirements, it's not what we would consider to be structurally balanced because we don't have alignment with ongoing resources and ongoing expenditures, but we were moving in that direction. And actually, your question is a great segue to the next chart, which doesn't go back 25 years, but it does go back to 2013, 14.
Okay, just somebody punched up the assistant county executive. Who's that?
Well, I'm in a different chair. That's me.
Oh, you're wearing both hats today?
I do all the time.
Okay. All right,
I just want to comment on that as well, because Amanda is absolutely right. We are definitely moving in the right direction. But I do want to reiterate what she said, that this is not structurally balanced, and it would be like you or I intentionally building our home budget by using savings instead of only spending up at the same or less than what we bring in. So again, we're absolutely moving in the right direction, and ideally we would only spend what we bring in.
Okay, so this chart actually is showing us the general fund beginning fund balance, both for fiscal year 22-23, and we're showing what was assumed in June, and then the last bar here is the actual fund balance that's now included in the revised recommended budget, and then we're showing for prior year budgets. So the total of each of these bars represents the total beginning fund balance available in that year's budget. And looking at the totals, you can see that historically the amount has been around $50 million. And the very high fund balance, and I know you're probably getting tired of hearing me say this each year, but the very high fund balance that we've seen in recent years, I think really can be attributed in large part to impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. So you can see that if you look at it compared to history, it has been unusually high. And that's the result of position vacancies because of difficulty filling positions, project and delivery delays. We've also received a lot of additional state and federal revenue and have had higher than anticipated sales tax revenue. So one of the things that I think we also need to keep in mind is as these impacts subside, I don't think we would expect to continue to have the same level of fund balance carry forward available in future years, which is another reason why it's important not to rely on this funding source for ongoing expenditures. And then just to talk a little bit about the different colors in the bars, the blue portion of the bars show the amount of fund balance budgeted to fund current year expenditures in each of those budgets each year, while the orange portion represents the remaining fund balance set aside in reserves each year. So that you can see with this revised recommended budget, so that bar all the way to the right of the chart, that we've been able to reduce the amount of fund balance needed to balance the budget, that blue portion, compared to both the June approved budget and the recent prior year budgets. And then we're now really a lot closer to historical levels of fund balance used to balance the budget and continuing to move in that direction of structural balance.
If I could, I get kind of the point both you and Ann made, but the structural balancing, to try to achieve that, it would be solely on paper, because you never are going to have every position in this county filled at any one time. You're always going to have some fund balance, and you're going to have things that change throughout the course of a year. I think it certainly can be a goal, and again, we've moved closer to that. But the way we do our budgeting, again, provides for some structural imbalance in the sense that you fully fund every position that's authorized. So the 13,000 positions, they're all fully funded for a year with all the benefit packages, as if you had every one. We know that's never been achieved in the history of this county. You can have full employment, but typically we run because of retirements, attrition, recruitment, and again, some of those may fluctuate, as you've said, Amanda, with economic conditions, with shortages in folks that meet the qualifications and such, and so it might not be on the order of magnitude, certainly as you both said, of what we've seen in the last couple of years because of some of those factors, but again, for as long as I've been with the county, it's been a long time, there's always been fund balance, and a portion of that, and a good portion of it, attributable to the way we budget for positions. Everything that was approved in June has been fully funded in this budget. Whether that position gets filled day after we approve the budget July 1st, or doesn't get filled at all this year, or somewhere along the line, and so that's that's a good part of accumulation. Granted, the contracts and some of the things that have taken us more time get rolled over year to year. But that fund balance, we've depended upon that. And again, it goes to my point, for all the years that I've certainly been with the county, to be a portion of what we do, and certainly doing the forward look and trying to fund those things that are important for service delivery, and even being creative at times and trying to look at other program elements and and making that decision between what you put aside for the rainy day versus what you fund, recognizing that you don't have all the income there coming in through whatever source to support that you're going to use the fund balance, and that in years to come you might have to tighten up, and we certainly had to do that we not only defunded positions, but we eliminated 3,000 positions in the recession. So again, if that's accurate, if not, but I believe that's how we budget. We fund everything to the dime as it relates to those positions and whatever their classification is and whatever their annualized salary and full benefit packages. Is that correct?
So it is correct that the cost of each position is reflected in the budget, but there are some things that we do to try to reflect an accurate picture of what will be spent. So departments assume a level of salary savings sort of consistent with kind of their
and terminal pay
annual,
for those
annual savings.
You anticipate that, right?
So, but I mean, I think to your point, we can by law we can't spend more than our budgeted appropriations. Sure. So we're almost always going to spend less. Right, because we're not spending exactly that amount. Right. So I think that is just true of budgets in general and kind of the nature of budgets. I think there is another side to the picture though, which are the revenues. Which obviously we have less control over, and it is possible that we could spend less, but also receive less in revenues than was budgeted, and that would result in, a reduced or less fund balance available at the end of the year. True. But I think to your point, and you can see looking back to 2013-14 here on this chart, there has always been some level of fund balance available in the general fund, and I think we would, expect that would continue to be the case going forward. We just wouldn't expect it to be at the level that it has been at the last couple of years.
Good. Thanks for that further information. Okay.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, a key reason that we're able to reduce the amount of funding required from discretionary resources, including fund balance, is because of an increase in estimated semi-discretionary resources. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Semi-discretionary reimbursements in the general fund are funded with revenue the county receives from the state for programs realigned under 1991 and 2011 realignment, and also for Proposition 172 public safety sales tax revenue. And we refer to this revenue as semi-discretionary because the board does have some discretion to allocate this funding within certain broad parameters. This revenue is received in restricted funds and then transferred to the general fund to fund eligible expenditures in social services and public safety departments. Due to the revised estimates of statewide sales tax and vehicle license fee revenue based on updated state budget assumptions, we're estimating a $50 million increase in semi-discretionary revenue compared to the approved budget. Additionally, due to revenue not spent in fiscal year 21-22, there is a $39 million increase in available fund balance in the semi-discretionary revenue funds. As a result of the increased revenue and fund balance, reimbursements to the general fund have increased by $88 million compared to the approved budget, including realignment funded growth of $5 million, which I'll describe on a later slide.
Yeah, Amanda, before you leave that slide then, as it relates to Prop 172 though, that realignment money, have I heard you said you put this in general fund? I thought we were restricted. That had to be used for sheriff, district attorney, and probation under the way that was structured. Has that been changed?
Correct. No. So all of this semi-discretionary, including Prop 172 and the realignment funding sources, can only be spent on certain eligible expenditures, but those expenditures occur in the general fund. So the revenue is received in the restricted funds, as you say, and then it's transferred to the general fund to pay for those eligible expenditures. And for Prop 172, those are in the departments that you mentioned.
So if I took it to this year's budget, then if you saw bump ups in those in the Prop 172, and there's an allocation that's set as it relates to, this county has said, this board said a number of years ago as to disbursements to district attorney, sheriff, and probation. And you're saying with that money coming in, then you were able to back general fund dollars out to use elsewhere in the budget, and could you maybe draw a line to then how that was used then? And the amount was it $50 million from Prop 172? What was the number?
So in total for Prop 172, 1991 realignment, and 2011 realignment, the total increase in semi-discretionary reimbursements in the general fund was $88 million. And yes, for the most part, those are expenditures that otherwise, we do have some growth that we're funding at about $5 million, but the rest are expenditures in the base budget that otherwise would be funded with discretionary resources. So that's how we're achieving that overall net $36 million reduction in expenditures funded with discretionary resources.
In 2011 realignment, is that still largely in health and social services, or does that have more discretion with it?
So there are various categories for various purposes. Some of them are health and social services, and some of them are public safety.
In 2011 realignment as well?
Correct.
And what was can you break that down a little more finite with regards to Prop 172? What was the bump in Prop 172?
Let's see, the Prop 172 increase in, I'm looking at the increase in revenue was $2.8 million.
So it's pretty modest.
But, however, the increase in reimbursement, I think, which is probably more to your point, which would also include fund balance, was about $13 million.
Okay. So that went back into the general fund for distribution and use. Well, you're recommending a good portion of that go to reserves, but could be used elsewhere in the general fund.
So effectively, kind of going back to the earlier point, what it's allowing us to do is to use less of our one-time fund balance to fund ongoing expenditures in the general fund.
But it didn't result in bump ups in the budgets. You said you can, whatever the budget amount was in the approved budget in June for along with any changes you may present here today in the budget adoption. But it doesn't just go there and then goes on top. It's taken into consideration. So you back out. Again, you already said that, but that's I want to be sure about that. So that money is made available, as you've shown this chart, $88 million in either general fund balance and or revenue increase.
Right. So I think to answer your question, we're not increasing appropriations as a result of the increase in reimbursements, but appropriations are increasing for other reasons.
Okay. Very good. Thanks.
And speaking of which, so turning now to look at general fund appropriations, of the overall $228 million increase compared to the approved budget, $209 million results from base budget changes for reasons described earlier in the presentation, including the rebudgeting of projects, grants, and other obligations that were not fully expended in fiscal year 21-22, as well as additional state and federally funded programs and projects that were approved after development of the June budget. And general fund expenditures for approved ARPA projects not already reflected in the approved budget are also included in the revised recommended budget. And this includes $38 million for ARPA revenue replacement that we're recommending be recognized in the general fund budget for eligible expenditures already incurred and then transferred to construction funds for the purposes of carrying out the board-approved revenue replacement projects. So recognizing and reporting the use of ARPA revenue replacement in this way will allow these approved projects to be accomplished without federal contracting and expenditure timeline restrictions. And we will continue to report to the board and to the public on the status of these projects that were approved to be funded and how this funding was ultimately used. As I mentioned earlier, the revised recommended budget reflects the cost of living, reflects the cost of an additional 1% cost of living adjustment and 2.5% longevity pay beyond what was assumed in the approved budget. And finally, we're recommending an increase to the general fund contingency of $5 million to bring the total to $27 million, which would be available to address unbudgeted costs for potential unanticipated or uncertain needs. In addition to these base budget changes, the general fund budget also includes $19 million in additional appropriations compared to the approved budget for recommended additional new or enhanced programs, or what we call growth. So while the revised recommended budget largely focuses on changes compared to the approved budget, I think it's important not to lose sight of the totality of the new or enhanced programs included in the budget. Overall, the approved budget included over $200 million in all funds growth, with $127 million of that in the general fund. As part of the June budget approval, the board also approved our recommendation that another $4 million in general fund growth be prioritized for inclusion in the revised recommended budget should sufficient additional resources be available. The revised recommended budget includes this prioritized growth plus additional recommended growth of $15 million, which I'll describe in more detail in a later slide. The revised recommended budget also includes $8 million of other fund appropriations that are linked to general fund growth, either as expenditures, as the expenditure side of a transfer of funding from the general fund, or as a reimbursement to fund growth in the general fund. This slide just lists some of the highlights of the most significant general fund growth already included in the approved budget, including $15 million in the correctional health and sheriff's budget to address the county's obligations under the Mays consent decree regarding conditions of confinement in the county's jails, $10 million for expanded capacity for substance use residential treatment, $5 million for behavioral health crisis stabilization units, $6 million for various initiatives addressing homelessness, which of course is on top of substantial investments already approved using both general fund and ARPA funding. In addition to these amounts, we are also recommending additional growth in this area in the revised recommended budget. $20 million for a general fund transfer to the roads fund to address pavement maintenance and rehabilitation on roads throughout the unincorporated county. $5 million of growth was included for the Public Defender's Office for additional staffing, program expansion, and system implementation. $19 million of growth was approved for Child, Family, and Adult Services to support several program and service enhancements, including enhanced security services at the Centralized Placement Support Unit. While funding for these services to be provided by the Sheriff's Office was included in the approved budget, the positions in the Sheriff's budget were not added in the approved budget and are now included in the revised recommended budget. $3 million was included for the Department of Human Assistance to provide assistance and services to support new Afghan arrivals in the county. And $1 million was included for enhanced security for the county administration building, including additional building security attendants and sheriff security officers. Subsequent to budget approval, adjustments to the staffing plan were made, resulting in an additional net cost of approximately $160,000, included as additional recommended growth in the revised recommended budget.
Okay, Amanda, you need to pause. We got Supervisor Kennedy and Supervisor Cerna, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Amanda. First, I just want to make a comment on this slide, and then I do have a couple of specific questions. But as far as comment, you know, this is the thing about these county budgets is that nothing fits into perfect categories and can be siloed off and say that's what we're spending it on. And it just jumps out at me. It says, you know, fund growth for addressing homelessness, $6 million. But in essence, though, our fund growth that's addressing homelessness is far more than $6 million. This is just specific programs. But I mean, when you talk about the $10 million for SUD, when you talk about, you know, any of these public defender, I mean, Afghan refugee assist, I mean, all of these in some way or another could have positive and should have positive impacts on homelessness. More of an editorial comment than it is a question. I do have a question, though, regarding the substance use disorder residential treatment, which, you know, I think is fantastic. I want to do more. But so that $10 million, where is that reflected? Is that reflected in the $86 million that is the 2022-23 revised budget, recommended budget? Is that $10 million already captured in there?
So this $10 million was added as growth in the approved budget. Right. So it is in the total. You won't see it as a change from the revised recommended to approved. Right. But yes, it was added as growth in the approved budget. And I'm not sure what page you're looking at, but if you're looking at
H29.
Okay.
29.
It's going to take me a moment to get there. I apologize.
What you said, H29, Pat?
Yeah.
Of course, it's the last section. Right?
Save the best for last. I use more of these at budget time, these Post-it notes, than at any other time of the year.
Right. So this looks like it is the overall budget for health services, and yes, it would be included.
So that $10 million is in that 86. Then I also want to point out, and I don't know why I don't need to get into it, but the adopted budget and actuals for 21-22 were very different. We're aligning more, I think, but that we have gone from adopted budget in 21-22 to this year, or this recommended budget of 86. That's a significant increase. So I mean, that's again that more of an editorial comment. But again, I'm going to say that I would like to see even more. But I just want to point that out because when you're looking at the staff report and you look at things like, and they're right next to each other, we have road pavement rehabilitation projects, which we all think is important. But then and the $20 million of one-time net county costs that the board asked to be put in there. And then right below it at the next bullet is substance use disorder residential treatment, $10 million. It looks like we're, prioritizing our SUD programs and residential programs at half of what we would be for the road pavement rehabilitation projects. And that's not entirely the case when you look at the overall budget. That's correct?
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's a great point. I mean, I think it's important not to lose sight of the totals.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Supervisor Kennedy. Supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I too had a very similar comment about this this slide, and with all due respect, Amanda, I guess what if I was doing the presentation and knowing the amount of rightful public scrutiny on the subject of the tragedy of homelessness in our community, and the fact that it is our number one issue that we're trying to find resources to address, I would have had a separate slide that put into more context the $6 million, because if I'm the public and I happen to just see this slide, it seems like we're not prioritizing homelessness based on the comparative figures here, and that's to Supervisor Kennedy's point. You mentioned it briefly, but can you give us or remind us and remind the public what percentage, or hopefully you have the real numbers that we actually prioritized out of ARPA for homelessness?
Sure.
To underscore the fact that it's not just our annual budgeting consideration in terms of prioritizing what we do on the homeless front, but it's also a great deal of the one-time funding we get from the federal government.
So yes, you're right. A great deal of the ARPA funding was prioritized for homelessness, and I apologize, I don't have I can tell you the number in the budget, which is, I think, not the answer to your question, but we do have within this budget about $33 million of what has been allocated for housing and homelessness for projects that have already been approved. As you know, there are projects that are under development that will be funded with ARPA in the future, and I don't know if Emily has that number.
Is it somewhere in the neighborhood of 45, 50 million?
You also know it off the top of your head.
Oh. Okay, please keep your comments to yourself, please.
I believe you're right. I believe it was 49% in round one. The second round may have been a little bit different because there's some different allocations. It was 49% of round one ARPA, and then second round was $35 million, so I can't do that math backwards, but maybe Amanda can.
And I do have the total now is $95 million total.
Okay,
out of both.
So that's our annual budget and ARPA?
No, that is just the ARPA.
That's just
$95
ARPA,
million,
okay.
yes.
So I know that our county executive has been attempting to educate some folks about the amount that we spend on homeless services. And again, to the point made earlier, you could look at this slide and say addressing homelessness $6 million, but there's really a lot more to it than that, because there's overlap with SUD treatment and mental health initiatives that fall into that category. So maybe, Ann, you could explain the $181 million that you've often cited?
Yes. So overall, annually, we're spending approximately $181 million. That covers things like shelter services, transitional housing services, permanent supported housing services, mental health, substance abuse, garbage cleanup. So it's really comprehensive, the things that are into that number, but it does cover a wide variety of things, and the annual number is about $181 million and rising with these additional investments.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions at this juncture? All right, go ahead. Amanda.
Okay, so this table is showing us the growth that was prioritized in June for inclusion in the revised recommended budget, all of which is recommended to be funded. I won't go over each request in detail, but I did want to note that I wanted to note the highlighted numbers here on this table and mention that in June, the request for probation's Valley Oak Youth Academy expansion was anticipated to be funded with discretionary resources or net county cost. However, additional funding is now available from the state, resulting in no net county cost for this expansion. You can see that at the bottom of the table that the total for this prioritized growth included in the revised recommended budget is about $4.5 million in appropriations, with combined net county cost of $2 million. So that's everything that was prioritized from June and is now included in the revised recommended budget. In addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, we're also recommending new growth. So again, this is on top of base budget expenditures, it's on top of growth that was funded in the approved budget, and it is on top of the growth that was prioritized and is now funded in the revised recommended budget. This slide lists some of the most significant new recommended growth funded with discretionary or semi-discretionary resources, including $3.7 million funded with 1991 mental health realignment to increase capacity for the provision of subacute beds, specifically for individuals on Murphy's conservatorships. This recommendation will help create additional urgently needed subacute bed capacity and help prevent further loss of capacity. As mentioned earlier, we are also recommending additional growth of $3.4 million to expand and enhance already approved funding commitments for initiatives addressing homelessness. So again, this is $3.4 million of additional growth on top of all of the things that are already funded in the $181 million that Ann talked about. So this includes $2.5 million to extend Project Room Key through the end of the calendar year, as well as additional funding required for Safe Stay Communities and an emergency family shelter. We're also recommending Mental Health Services Act funding for a homeless initiative coordinator to support behavioral health homelessness programs. In response to recent increases in gun violence, we're recommending $1.5 million of 2011 realignment local innovation funds be used for a group gun violence reduction and prevention pilot program to identify and address increases in gun violence. To support a comprehensive land development process improvement that's currently underway, we're recommending approximately $600,000 to fund 3 new positions in community development that would provide enhanced project management, coordination, and facilitation for key development projects. And then in addition to the May's consent decree related growth in the approved budget, another $600,000 is needed to fund 4 deputy sheriff positions in order to provide expanded mental health services to the county jail inmate population.
Man, if we could pause there, and I see Supervisor Kennedy's punched up as well, but I wanted to ask on that particular point. So we've added numerous positions, approaching 200 positions, correctional health and custody positions. And I guess I'm curious here, I know I asked a general question in my briefing, but did we not look to the sheriff to maybe reallocate positions? There's a lot of unfilled. We know that from our POP teams and HOT teams having deficiencies in the numbers. And again, certainly within the purview of the sheriff to assign personnel. But when we talk about, and I guess here I need to know, I think others probably as well, when we say we're required to provide expanded mental health services, so how does adding sheriff's officers expand mental health services? What, does it get them to appointments or what?
So my understanding is that these positions are needed in order to provide the services that are required. And we could certainly get more information around if Mr. Jones has more detail to share.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, Board. Eric Jones, Deputy County Executive. And so this is specific to an agreement with Plaintiffs' Counsel for a very imminent need out at our CCC Rio Casunas Correctional Center for 4 deputies to be to activate an area for the intensive outpatient program to work with adult correctional health services, to be specifically assigned there so that, for example, beds don't need to be used at the main jail, which would not be the proper place for that situation.
So there's a plan then under the consent decree to open another area that's not currently being used or redesignate an area. Eric, again, I didn't know the specifics behind this, and I didn't inquire that much in my briefing, but.
Yes, we actually began that on September 1st because it was that important, knowing that or hoping for it to be funded in this new request. But those 4 deputies actually already began that unit for intensive outpatient program.
And we have sufficient correctional health staff to then provide the program that is being overseen by the custody staff?
For that specific one, correct.
Because I know that's been part of the challenge, and it was alluded to in the general comments, and certainly we're aware of it, is trying to fill positions, doctors, nurses, other professional, whether it's psychiatric and or behavioral health services. And so we have, if I heard you correct then, so for this unit at RCCC, that we have the professional correctional health staff that is the complement to the in-custody staff. So it's up and operating.
Correct.
Okay. And could you tell me what the correctional health assignments, maybe you don't have it on your top, but so what is the unit? Is it for 20 people, 20 beds, 10 beds for, and then we have a psychiatrist assigned, a medical doctor, nurse, what's the complement of folks that are assigned to that unit?
For that detail, I may ask if Sandy can come up and assist.
Hi, Sandy.
Good morning. Sandy Damiano, Interim Health Director. We agreed to a settlement with Plaintiffs' Counsel to do an intensive outpatient mental health program. We have several of those, as you know, and we needed another one for our people to get them out of the ad-seg unit, which is really very much a separation. We redeployed some of our internal staff to prioritize that, so we have our contractor working on that program. There wasn't sufficient officers needed for this deputy part. It's really for the acute psychiatric population. They are a multidisciplinary team.
So correctional health, you were able to reprioritize, either reallocate, reassign folks, but the sheriff wasn't able to do that likewise?
Well, we had another growth request for the enhanced outpatient program, so we redeployed those because of the need. So we are going to rebalance our requests for next year to get that program fully functional because we had a very quick time frame to turn this around.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just be clear, so the sheriff's positions, those were filled, those were immediately filled
Yes.
with officers?
Yes, they were pulled from other locations at that time.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Kennedy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Supervisor Kennedy, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to be a little bit of a broken record here. But again, if I look at this and I see first of all, to the CEO, the land development process improvement, I take it we're eventually going to have some more of a comprehensive findings, recommendations on that subject sometime in the future?
Yes, we're getting very close to that being finalized and completed. This was a preliminary recommendation by the consultant, but there will be more to come.
And so I guess, you know, this falls in line with me every year saying, and along with my colleagues, you know, how we need to do a better job of telling our story. I mean, if I see this, I see that looks like bureaucrat government ease, when in essence, again, I'm going to repeat myself, this is an expenditure that actually could go toward helping our homeless population. I mean, because some of our frustration is how long it takes to develop affordable and permanent supportive and other types of housing, even market rate, which is just exacerbating our homeless problem when this is another $600,000 that's meant to alleviate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is supposed to make it smoother, faster, more efficient.
Good. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Any other? Okay. Amanda, continue.
Okay. So the revised recommended budget also includes a $251,000 increase to the county's contribution to the Museum of Science and Curiosity, formerly the Powerhouse Science Center, consistent with the funding agreement approved by the board in 2014, in which the county agreed to an increased contribution amount to cover a share of the debt service on the new museum, which has now been constructed.
Mr. Chair, on that point, I just want to point out that was considered kind of an oversight in the recommended budget, wasn't it?
Yeah, we just simply weren't made aware of it until it was too late to get it in the recommended budget.
Okay,
yes.
great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for clarification. Go ahead.
Okay. So looking now at the recommendations for general fund reserves, as mentioned at the beginning, we are recommending an $82 million net increase in reserve contributions compared to the approved budget. This $82 million increase includes an additional $4 million for general reserves to comply with the general reserves policy that specifies 10% of available fund balance is to be contributed to general reserves each year. an additional $4 million for the audit report payback future litigation settlement reserve to be available to address amounts that may be owed by the county as a result of audits or litigation settlements or judgments, bringing this reserve to $50 million total. $15 million to the property tax system reserve as a result of increased estimated costs. This reserve would total $34 million in order to ensure future year funding for completion of the new property tax system.
Can I ask a question on that? So I thought we fully funded that in last year's budget, and now you're saying it's going to cost more. Explanation, please.
Well, the cost of everything is going up, and yes, the cost estimates for this project have increased, which is why we want to set aside the additional funding so that we can finish it.
Gone from what to what? I thought we appropriated $30 million for this previously.
Can I ask Mr. Villanueva to address that?
Good morning, Supervisors.
Morning.
Chair Natoli. I'm David Villanueva, Deputy County Executive. At the time that we did the budget, we did not have an RFP out. So since then, we've done the RFP and have real numbers back. I think originally we thought it was going to be considerably higher, but we took some conservative numbers and our best guess based on some other county implementations. So I'd have to look to Amanda to remind me what the detailed numbers were as far as the amount we funded. But that's what caused the increase in costs. We actually got true responses from our vendors.
Yeah, in terms of the total, we do have about $14 million included in the budget for this fiscal year. So that would be in addition to the $34 million that would now be in this reserve. And I believe that includes the cost of implementation as well as the first couple of years of maintenance on the system.
So
that's correct. It includes maintenance on the system for the first 5 years.
So it's gone from 30 to 48, roughly?
It did, yes. Yep.
Again, just reminding that it also includes the first 5 years of service.
First 5 years?
5? Is that
5 years of support and services.
Which is how much annually?
I would have to get back to you on that number.
Okay.
Usually about 15%.
So when it was said to the board that this was fully funded when we took the action, recognizing there were some unknowns, did it not include 5 years of service and did it not include implementation, or you were just talking about the hardware? Because, I mean, we could go back and look at it, but if I recall clearly, fully fund that. That was it was talked about in the budget when we approved it last year.
So that was an estimate, and after doing the RFP, we got proposals back at a much higher number. It's just everything is more costly now than anticipated, but it was an estimate. We did think that, yes, that would cover the whole thing, and we were wrong.
Okay, but I wasn't looking for you to say we're wrong, but it did include the implementation. It did include, so all that estimate previously, but now it's going to cost us roughly 50% more. And I guess the caution I would just say here, we need to do this. There's no doubt about it. It's been on there. And again, I know, Ann, you took it on head on in your first year as county executive, and it's important to track the revenues and certainly keep the accounting that's important to what we're talking about here embodied in this budget. But having had a little bit of experience, and Ann, you may have in your previous role with computer system upgrades in the Department of Human Assistance, working with the state. I know you were instrumental in that. Also, we did some of this in the Department of Revenue Reimbursement some years ago before David was in charge of internal services. Again, there's a history of when we do major revamps of computer systems nationally or statewide, not so much in this county, but it's something we just need to watch for. Because again, once you're into these, and again, I haven't sat on the board the years I have, there was discussion back in the first decade of the 2000s about, well, we're so far in, can we stop now? And and that's what happens. You get in for $30 or $40 million, and then it's going to be another X. And I'm not saying this project is going to go beyond what you've contemplated here, but then you're so far in that you have no place to turn back to. And so I just would, as a caution, again, when we do our best, we go out to the marketplace. But if you look at some of the revamps of state systems and how much delayed they are, and the costs that exceed, but again, there's no turning back once you embark on it, or if you turn back, then you lose because of proprietary issues that relate to the vendors and all of that. And so again, I would just say cautions on this, and again, it needs to be done, and again, I'm not wasn't trying to point out that somebody was wrong. That wasn't my point. It was just that we've got to stay on top of these because, and they're all general fund expenditures. That's the thing is, so, you know, and if we go into a year when we're in a down situation, you set aside the reserve, but it can get eaten up, and then you're at a point where you have to retrain folks and such. So, again, I say that as a caution because, again, this already we haven't even started. We're, you know, looking at the reality of what it's going to cost us here, and we're now approaching $50 million for an upgrade that was contemplated to be 3/5 of that initially going in. So, and only in the last year and a half. So,
understood.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Dave.
And finally, an additional $60 million is recommended to the Service Stability Reserve. So this was the reserve that was established in the approved budget and would be available to mitigate revenue losses during economic downturns in order to help maintain county services at a time when they are most needed by the community. With these increases overall, $175 million of the $245 million in one-time fund balance would be set aside for future year expenditures. Total discretionary reserves would stand at $291 million. And there are a couple of ways to put this number in context. The first is that the $291 million represents about 8% of general fund revenues and reimbursements. The best practice recommendation of the Government Finance Officers Association is for a minimum of 2 months, or the equivalent of about 17% of annual revenues. So we're still well below the recommended minimum. The percentage has improved compared to the approved budget when it was at 6%. So we've gone from 6 to 8%. Another way to put the $291 million of total discretionary reserves in context is to look at what actually happened to the county's property tax, sales tax, and transient occupancy tax revenues during the last Great Recession. As shown on this chart, it took nearly 10 years for tax revenues to return to pre-recession levels. The cumulative revenue loss during that time period would have required reserves of approximately $600 million to maintain funding at the 2008 level. If we experience the same percentage losses with today's tax revenues, that number would be about $800 million. It should be noted that this chart doesn't take into consideration semi-discretionary revenues, which, as I talked about, are largely based on statewide sales taxes and would be subject to the same sorts of impacts from future economic downturns. So if those revenues were factored in, this number would be even larger. And so while we continue to have a ways to go, the recommended reserve increases keep us on the right path toward being prepared for the next downturn, which, as economic indicators show, and as we've already alluded to, may already or soon be upon us. And I really think this board deserves a lot of credit for making the decision both last year and in June to set aside significant amounts of one-time resources to be available when needed to help sustain county services in future years. So in addition to the approval of the revised recommended budget for fiscal year 22-23, we're also recommending approval of the community engagement plan for the fiscal year 22-23 or 2023-24 budget process. So to help set some context, I wanted to first talk a little bit about the community engagement process leading up to this year's budget. And as you know, in June of 2021, the board approved a community outreach and engagement plan for the fiscal year 22-23 budget. As part of that plan, in the summer of 2021, staff prepared a budget and brief budget summary, launched an online budget explorer tool, and both of which provide easily accessible and easy to understand budget information for the general public. Also over the summer, departments conducted outreach with the county's advisory boards and commissions, on which almost 600 people serve, to better understand their priorities for the county's budget. In October of 2021, 2 virtual public budget workshops were held to provide an overview of the county's budget and budget process and an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions and provide input. And based on the input gathered through the outreach efforts, we worked with a professional polling firm to develop a public opinion survey of a representative sample of residents countywide to understand the community's priorities for the county's budget, with the survey conducted in late October and early November. In December of 2021, the board adopted budget priorities for the use of general fund discretionary resources, reflecting the community priorities highlighted in the survey results. And those priorities were used to develop both the budget requests, which departments began working on in January of this year, and the budget recommendations presented at the hearings in June and during today's meeting. Looking forward to the 2023-24 budget process, we're recommending a community engagement plan that builds on the elements implemented for 2022-23 and also supports further refinement and enhancement in future years. We will continue to publish, support, and develop easy to understand information explaining the county's budget and make this information available in multiple languages on the county's website. Building on the budget priority survey results, we will work with the same firm that conducted the survey to conduct focus groups of county residents to provide additional qualitative information to support or refine the existing budget priorities, and also to help develop survey questions for the next budget priority survey, which would be conducted in advance of the 2024-25 budget process. Departments will continue to engage with their advisory boards and commissions to help inform budget requests aligned with board priorities, and we will conduct one or more budget workshops open to the public in order to continue sharing information about the county's budget and provide an opportunity for the public to ask questions and provide input. Based on information gathered as a result of the focus groups and other engagement, staff will recommend to the board any updates or refinements to the budget priorities in advance of development of the fiscal year 2023-24 budget. And that concludes the substance of my presentation. In addition to approval of the revised recommended budget, the other recommended actions are shown here. Actions 2 and 3 are administrative actions related to the budget approval. Action 4 is an approval of changes to the capital improvement program consistent with changes included in the revised recommended budget. Action 5 is approval of reporting to the U.S. Treasury of ARPA revenue replacement, as I described earlier. And Action 6 is approval of the community engagement plan that I just described on the previous slide.
Great. Thanks, Amanda.
Happy to take any additional questions.
Okay, let's go to board members for questions, and maybe just from a standpoint of process, Ann, we can take questions from board members. We can, and then I trust there are items that board members want to maybe propose for either further consideration, may require staff then having some time to come back. So I know we have a closed session, and what we could do is take board member comments, and then staff can have those to work on while we're, I guess, in closed session, or come back this afternoon and take public comment. I have a handful of folks that have signed up in chambers. I don't know how many are on the phone, so I don't know. Does that seem to comport?
Yes, I think if we do break it, after your discussion right now around noonish, go straight to closed session, and then
give a little time.
Give a little break for fiscal staff to do whatever they need to do based on your comments.
Okay.
And then we'll take public comment at 2.
Do that, sure. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. So we just obviously heard staff's presentation. We're going to hear from the public. Is the intent then to, after we hear from the public, have board members make suggestions or make comments, and then during closed session have staff go back and figure out how to address some of those suggestions?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to be clear.
And again, for public commenters, I guess I would give folks a choice. I mean, you're going to hear from board members, and certainly some, again, recognize people's time. If for those that are signed up, and I don't know, Flo, how many do you have on the phone?
We don't have any callers on the phone.
Okay. Again, give folks the chance to either speak now if they'd like to, or listen to board members' comments and questions and any things you'd like to have reviewed during the noon hour, and then come back and make comments at 2 o'clock. So I'm going to allow speakers that opportunity, those that have signed up. So with that, the 3 that I have signed up are Dan Adderholt, Rick, and Liz Bloom were signed up to make comments. Would you prefer to do it now, or would you prefer Liz and Rick? Okay, very good. And then, okay, Mackenzie, maybe I missed the sheet. Okay, so, I do have both items. Okay. All right, so let me just ask the speakers. Would you prefer to address the board now? No? Okay, all right, very good. So then let me get those, go to order I call them. I'll get Dan, Rick, Mackenzie, Liz Bloom, and Mackenzie. No, I wasn't intended to. I was either way, give you a chance to speak either one. So if you speak now, then the public comment, I'm going to close the public comment period when we're done here. So, all right. Yeah. Okay, Dan, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Well, several things I heard today, and what I realized, though, is a lot of it is tunnel vision on shelters, and there needs to be affordable housing on this budget. Also, like I said earlier today, but there needs to be more money and put aside for more family shelters for people who are homeless with families as well. Kennedy and Stern, you guys are right on money. I like what I heard when you guys said that stuff today. I like that, what I heard. The thing is, what price do you give a life? I mean, the price you pay for one shelter, I mean, I've been hearing people say 17 million, 18 million they need for shelters and stuff. $1 million, I get people in the house here in Sacramento. There's plenty of homes available right now that are not being utilized. And it's crazy because you got all these people suffering on the streets when you got all these affordable housing ready to go, and the price you pay for a shelter, you can help thousands off the street when it only helps 150 in a shelter. I mean, it don't take a rocket scientist to figure this out, which is a better play. To help 1,000 people or more, or help 150 with the price you got. I mean, a lot of homeless out here work 3 to 4 jobs. I can speak for my America Homeless crew alone out here. They work 2 to 3 jobs, and they're still out here cleaning the America River Parkway every day. Every day they're out there with me. Whether it's in the evening time or it's in the morning time, they're out there with me. And I got to hand it to them. They're out there. They love their community. And right now, I just found out there's no affordable housing available for them because the county can't help them with affordable housing. When there's homes available, Don, you know this, I showed you, there's affordable housing available. There's 87 homes right here in Sacramento alone in the River District available. 87. That can help a lot of homeless families and a lot of homeless people off the streets. Also, what about the homeless animals? We're back at this again. Homeless animals that have just as much right to live as anyone else does. And we're right back to square one again, what we started talking about in the beginning of helping animals, homeless animals. The shelters only allow 1, maybe 2 dogs, and these homes that right here are letting you have 4 dogs. These homes are available right now that you guys utilize to get these homeless people off the streets. Section 8 said they don't have the emergency housing vouchers. They don't have, they're closed right now for helping. What about you guys? Why can't you guys give the funding to get these homeless people the homes that are working 2, 3 jobs? Give them a hand. Help them off the streets instead of shoving them into a shelter they don't want to be. And quite honestly, nobody wants to be in a shelter. They don't trust shelters. Shelters is a haven for drugs and sex offenders and sex prostitution. That's what's going on in these shelters right now today. And it's sad because they should be monitored and they should be watched instead of letting everything happen in there. There's a lot of criminal activity in there that's going on in these shelters and needs to be stopped. That's why there's no way in hell my America Homeless crews will go in no shelter. I'll be honest with you with that. Well, also what I want to say, though, is Don, the Board of Supervisors, can you guys please help these homeless people that are working these jobs and trying to make it out the streets, just can't afford the deposit and all that. Can you guys please help them into a home, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks for your comments. Okay, next is Rick. And then Rick's followed by Liz, followed by Mackenzie. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. I want to start off by reading some facts. Sacramento County spends 10 times more general fund dollars on the sheriff versus mental health. $12 per person on public health and $201 per person on sheriff. 70% of general funds on the criminal legal system and 5% on the health services. Now, these numbers are appalling, and I can tell you firsthand as a frontline mental health worker that my coworkers and the thousands of people that I come in contact with, housed and unhoused, would just be as appalled, but probably not surprised at these numbers. I can also confidently say that the lack of funding for mental health and social services can be felt and seen in every staff I talk to from various organizations around the county. You can hear it in their voice. A tired, hopeless sound that feels familiar, because I have felt it too. It's the sound you produce when you're trying to help someone access a service that they desperately need, but you have to inform them, sorry, there honestly just isn't anything that can help that right now. That service doesn't exist. The funding isn't there. There's so much that goes into sustaining good quality mental health that far exceeds medications and hospitalizations. And as it stands right now in Sacramento, there is little to none of that essential social services that foster true and lasting health in our communities. Here are some of the essential needs that pertain to everyone in SAC, housed or unhoused. Without investing in these and investing in, instead, police, our city will never foster true growth, but only continued hopelessness of consumers and providers. And so I have a list, and it's, believe me, it's a lot bigger than this. Invest in permanent, supportive, and or deeply affordable publicly owned housing with units that include individualized wrapped-around services and include options that are designed for formerly incarcerated community members. Fund 24/7 decentralized drop-in resource centers, because once again, as a frontline worker, everything's closed after 5 p.m. There's very little in this county, which goes all the way from Citrus Heights to Galt, that is open after 5 p.m. And believe me, people have mental health issues and problems after 5 p.m. Sustainably fund community-based organizations. Fund and provide basic necessities such as items for personal hygiene and daily living needs. I don't think anybody in this chambers can understand what it does to your mental health when you don't have a roof over your head, water, and food. Increase county funding for public defense, focus on pre-conviction and plea. Finally, establish annual budget priorities that center community care needs over law enforcement and elite economic interests. With my remaining time, I'll just say, like I said, as a frontline worker, this system is drowning. The workers are drowning, the consumers are drowning, the providers are drowning. We need to do a change now. And it's a change in money, but it's also a change of hearts and minds. We have to come to an agreement that we're not going to fund police and criminalization, but instead fund people and fund our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, following Rick is Liz Blum, and then Mackenzie. Good morning, Liz.
Good morning, almost afternoon. That's good, thank you. So hello, my name is Liz Blum. I'm here today as a campaign coordinator for Decarcerate Sacramento and a member of the Community Care First Coalition. And I'm very privileged to be presenting to you our final report, which we completed in partnership with the California Pan-Ethnic Health Network. And I'd like to pass it off to Flo, maybe to hand to you all. Thank you. Thank you. So as I said, we're very excited to finally share our Sacramento County People Power for Public Health report with you all today. This was a statewide project that was carried out in 4 counties: Sacramento, Fresno, Kern, and Orange counties, to create local policy and budget recommendations from the data gathered by community residents to improve racial and health equity in Sacramento County. In partnership with the California Pan-Ethnic Health Network, we interviewed over 100 Sacramento County residents, most who are experiencing the most intense impacts of the historic divestment from social services. So now, if it's all right, I would like to play for you a 3-minute audio clip from some of the interviews that we carried out with incarcerated individuals in Sacramento County throughout the research and data collection for the report. And I respectfully and humbly ask that since these individuals were not able to be here in person today, that my time could possibly be extended to account for that.
Okay, so you want an additional 3 minutes to play the audio?
Yes, and it's a many different individuals who have given their consent.
Okay, all right.
All right, so I will.
So I'm going to add some time here.
Thank you.
Just a minute here.
What a healthy Sacramento County feel like to me is, man, being comfortable where you at, being comfortable in your own skin, having access to, jobs, having access to education, having a safe environment for your kids to come on, and, probably like a healthier community. More programs for people, for the homelessness, more community for more parenting classes, drug and alcohol substance abuse classes to the reoccurring people that are getting incarcerated in here, because it seems like that's what they're looking for. That's what that people need. Like, I'm in here, like I said, 90% of the people in here is either dealing with mental health or substance abuse.
Better medical care for people who can't really afford it. Just more assistance on the homeless living out there. Because when you have a stable living, you feel good about yourself. And you feel like you want to do something in life. That's I always imagine that. It's just a place to live and lay your head. It's a wonderful thing.
I need tools to help me when I get out. Tools to help me with my drug addiction. I don't, to get a job.
And help me be able to deal with not knowing my children after being gone for so long, because I have children that grew up while I was incarcerated. So it's like, help me reestablish myself back into society, dealing with mental issues of anxiety, depression, and, post-traumatic stress disorder, and dealing with a drug problem. Help me be able to seek help instead of incarcerating me.
Give me help that we need. Give me help that we deserve. I understand that, even though we're inmates, we're still human. We still have needs. We still have, wants. We still have desires. And, if housing, medical, anything that's stable for the community is cool. That'll probably take a lot of the unnecessary crime away, because a lot of this stuff is due to us not being able to have stable housing.
But my thing is, I don't think they want that over here, because they so infatuated. Well, we take them to jail and they getting paid. They just worried about the money aspect of it. You need to worry about helping people change their life and become a better person in life, to be somebody, instead of having people always constantly come back to jail. Because it's like over here, when they say jail was a revolving door, they really stand by that. These people constantly come back numerous times in 1 month. They repeatedly come back because they don't have nothing out there. They don't have nothing in here to help them change their life, or to show them how to become a better person, or help them with showing them that, okay, we care about you. We know you're a human. We know you're a person. Well, we care about what you're doing with your life.
Thank you for listening, and I want to thank all of the individuals who shared their recommendations for the county budget. One of the ways that we can fund a budget that prioritizes the items outlined by the individuals we just heard from and that are outlined in the CPEN report is by reinvesting AB 109 funding, or noted in the budget as 2011 realignment. This funding from the state is an ongoing annual funding source that can be spent on programs that will reduce recidivism, which include all of the budget priorities outlined in the People Power for Public Health report. In fact, other counties like Yolo, Alameda, and Contra Costa have dedicated significant portions of their AB 109 expenditures directly to health and treatment programs. Since 2015, Sacramento County has received $40 to $60 million per year, totaling $359.7 million of AB 109 or 2011 realignment funding. 52% of this typically goes to the Sheriff's Department, 36% to the Probation Department, 10% to Jail and Correctional Health, and 1% to the District Attorney. 0% of this funding, while permitted by the state, has gone to community-based care. The extremely understaffed Public Defender's Office has received $0 in funding from AB 109, while the District Attorney has received millions since 2015. I'm finishing up. Okay. I wanted to note just one specific thing about the new revised recommended budget. The Public Defender request, while I support it being filled for the DJJ realignment responsibilities, the youth realignment responsibilities, the Juvenile Justice Block Grant Committee actually outlined that they need 2 attorneys and 2 social workers for the Public Defender's Office in their new for their new caseloads to defend youth. And I'm also wondering why, I'm wondering why this allocation doesn't match that recommendation. And lastly, just broadly, I hear that you all, are doing a lot. It would be great to hear that we could be doing more. We acknowledge that, right? And so when we measure the impact and outcomes of our spending, we do see, the departments of like the human assistance are getting millions in funding to support renters and housing support. But how much of this funding is actually going to housing people? Last sentence, sorry. How much of this goes to administrative overhead or navigator staff who have nowhere to navigate unhoused clients to? And so I just would love, for us to consider the impacts and outcomes of our funding priorities. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Liz. And thanks to Deputy County Executive Jones for pulling together information on the AB 109 thing. Okay, very good. Thank you, Liz. Okay, Mackenzie.
Good day, Board. My name is Mackenzie Wilson. My pronouns are they, them, and I come today as the community organizer for Decarcerate Sacramento, the Sacramento Tenants Union. And we're all members of your local Community Care First Coalition. I will name my frustration with the fact that thousands of voices have been brought into this room between DS, the People's Budget Survey, already doing that community engagement, and now adding to that number voices from a report that DS and Care First helped publish about what services this community wants and doesn't have. Simply, how many more voices are needed for y'all to start to listen? Today, I will read quotes from these community members about their about the lack of access to opportunity and choice and the ability to live. Before I begin, we analyzed your budget, and we want to remind you that Sacramento County spends 10 times more of the general fund money on the sheriff than mental health, $12 per person on public health, and $201 per person on the sheriff, and that 70% of our general fund is going to the criminal legal system and only 5% on health services. So, on access to primary preventative and behavioral health, people spoke on jumping through hoops and having to fail first to get access to services. It takes a lot to get what you need, and some people don't have the time to jump through those hoops. Like me, I have mental health issues, and I can't write, and there's a lot of questions back and forth, and I just want to get it down from a currently unhoused person. It's poor. For medical care, it's like pulling teeth. You have to be bold. You have to speak up. Even with my doctor, if you don't, they're going to treat you like crap. They're not going to give you anything. They're not going to take care of you right. Another quote, it's hard to get on any list, and they have certain criteria, so you can't have any income to get in the program. That's from a person recently released from downtown jail. I'm thinking about my younger brother. He had a job, and the job didn't offer health care insurance benefits. The cost of going through the exchange of the Cover California was so high that he wouldn't be able to have a whole lot of funds left over after his paycheck if you signed up for that. So he went without without health insurance for a while. Mind you, he was also taking methadone. There would be times that he couldn't afford to pay for the methadone clinic to get what he needed, so he wouldn't get sick. You've really got to fail first in order to get any type of assistance. So when he lost his job at the crush to his ego and self-esteem and mood of being unemployed, not having that structure and that purpose, and but it did get him on Medi-Cal because he could finally be so broke enough to afford it or to have access to it. So where he's able to then get the meds he needs and the treatment he needs. But it seems like that's a trap. Folks have to really fail before they can get any type of assistance to try and keep their head above water. Barriers to health care, lack of resources. My son, I literally know people who will go to jail just to get readjustment on meds because they feel like they don't know how or they don't have any other place they can go. And then when they get out of jail, they think they're healed, but they're not. And then they end up back in similar situations and back in jail, and it's not because they're criminals or anything. It's just that they're looking for a specific resource, whatever it may be. So by the time that they get whatever they needed, it's going to be it's not going to be very much anyways. And when they don't transfer back out into, I'm going to scoop onto emergency and crisis response. We're having a very hard time, especially around mental health. We just don't have, I see my time's up. We just don't have the services. They're just leaving people out to try and figure it out. Navigating the 211 system is so hard when you know that the constant go-to is not accessible. We just don't have the wraparound services and the housing available at this point. Simply, please read through the report. Please begin to make investments into this community. Please listen to the thousands of voices that have come into this room. And please pay attention to the fact that your general fund is still continuing to uplift carceral and punishment-based systems rather than actual reinvestment into housing, healthcare services, mental health services. Stop paying for the overhead and just give people the things they need.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Okay, that's that's all the speakers I had signed up in chambers. Was there anyone on the phone? And we'll take those.
We do have some. We have one caller. Let me just double check that they're
All right.
still there. We have one caller on hold.
Okay, all right, let's take the caller.
Okay. Yeah. Can you transfer the call, please? Hi, caller. Please start with your comments. You have 3 minutes. Hi, caller. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Please start with your comments. You have 3 minutes.
Sure. Good afternoon now, Board of Supervisors, county staff, all the friends out there. This is Nikki. In particular, shout out to all the folks who participated in our Community Care First report in partnership with the California Pan-Ethnic Health Network. Shout out to those folks for doing that work across the state, really looking at what priorities are communities who are most in need, who are really slipping through the cracks of conventional county services, who are really slipping through the cracks even of community-based services, and how do we and ending up in jail and on our streets, and how are we, firstly, listening to them. And it was a great exercise in that, and I advise everyone to look over the report carefully. But secondly, what are their ideas and policy solutions around what they really need, how money should be spent, and what would make a difference and an impact in their lives so that they wouldn't be falling through these cracks. They're actually talking about how to fill the cracks, right? How to fill the gap, something that the county really just nibbles at the edges of, instead of going full force to address a problem to scale. I think y'all know that. I know y'all do a lot of work on a lot of issues, and obviously no one is saying you don't. This is a billion-dollar budget, but how is the money trickling down to people, and how is it prioritized in such a way that people who really need it are getting what they need? I think you already heard these numbers, but I'm going to share again because they're staggering. 10 times more general fund dollars on the sheriff than mental health. $12 per person on public health versus $201 per person on the sheriff. 70%. We've been telling y'all this for years, but 70% of our general fund goes to the criminal legal system, while only 5% is on health services. So where does that leave our folks? It leaves them unhoused and unhealthy out on the street. In fact, experiencing early death on a regular basis. And it's a crisis, and we need you all to act like it. We have reserves for a rainy day. We have all this money going in all these directions to try to address a problem after the fact. So much money on policing, jails, probation to address a problem after the fact, when we could be really investing in the community where we need it at early ages. Care from your whole lifespan. Can you imagine if people just had child care, had the health care they need, had the disability services that they needed, and had elder and aging care without it ruining them financially? Can you imagine what our communities would look like instead? And y'all have choices about this. It's literally the choices you're making today. And when you continue to make these same status quo deference to increasing law enforcement budgets, to increasing our criminal legal system, instead of increasing in significant transformative ways the real care people need, you're making that choice. And we have no option but to interact with y'all as if that's the choice you're making, as if you are continuing to make the choice that leaves our people falling through the cracks.
Nikki, I need to ask you to conclude, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. That leaves our people dying early. Y'all are making the choice. Okay. That leaves our people in contact with violent law enforcement. Y'all are making the choice, okay? And so just carry that with you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Nikki. Okay. All right. Thank you, caller.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank folks for the public comment this morning. Thank you for sharing the report and the comments from other parties as well, both to Liz and Mackenzie for the comments that they brought forward on behalf of others and those that they interviewed. Okay. With that, I'm going to bring it back to the board then for comments, suggestions, and then we'll go into closed session and come back this afternoon with the final deliberations. So, all right, with that, Supervisor Cerner, you go first.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start with joining our CEO in thanking all of our department heads, our deputy executives, all the staff that have, including the CEO, of course, that have put a great deal of time and energy into putting this final budget recommendation before the board and the public. I think it's evidence of being very deliberate and thoughtful as it relates to what I think most of us can agree is some pending economic challenge, general economic challenge, which I think is very wise for us to be considering at this point, given, as was discussed earlier on a different matter, the fact that cost of living and inflation continue to hamper even short-term budgets. I do respect the fact that a good deal of consideration has been put into our reserve status. As I think I've mentioned here before, I was in these chambers in 2008 and 9 and in 10 as a seated member of the board, and that's something I would hope that during my tenure I and we don't have to go through again. It was very painful. It was something that in some instances decimated service delivery in many cases to our most vulnerable populations. And so I think being cognizant of that experience and reflecting back on it, that it can happen again, and that we now have a chance to finally understand what we can do to try and soften that blow, I think is paramount to this budget and future budgets. I want to thank the Community Care First group that has not just presented the report, but also sent a number of emails to us in recent days, explaining that from their position, this board can and should have should rate as high priority a number of different social services and housing services, and that's not lost on me. It's not lost, I don't think, on anyone on this board. We have an obligation to not just balance our budget every year. Legally, we do. But I think, again, it's a reflection of our values, and so we have an opportunity and an obligation every year during June and September to make sure that we check ourselves, quite frankly, to make sure that we believe wholeheartedly that our priorities are reflected in how we appropriate resources. So finally, I want to make a suggestion, and this is one that comes from a lot of forethought over the last several weeks that I've shared with our county executive and our county council. I think it speaks to some of what has been communicated by many of our constituents in terms of the outstanding need for greater affordable housing opportunities in Sacramento County. And I think it's a creative idea. It's a new idea as far as I can tell, but one that I think we should feel obligated to at least try. And I will do my best to try and summarize it as best I can. What inspired the idea was reflection on the Williamson Act. And for those that may be watching or in chambers that may be unfamiliar with the Williamson Act, it's generally it's a piece of enabling legislation that permits counties to provide a property tax incentive, a tax break to participating ranchers, farmers that keep their acreage in agricultural production for a minimum amount of time, usually 20 years. And there's a contractual arrangement with the county that the acreage will stay in agricultural production for that amount of time, and during that amount of time, the participating agricultural interest will receive that property tax break. That's a very general explanation of it. And the purpose for it was to conserve farmland and protect it from encroaching development. So it occurred to me that if we can do that for the purpose of conserving farmland, which is a laudable, mission, why couldn't we do something similar for the provision of affordable housing in the county? And so the idea, simply put, is that we would look to participating, probably multifamily landlords in our county who obviously have a built-in interest to be made whole, meaning that they're going to typically command the highest rents that the market can bear. I think we know that all too well, especially in this current time with this market. And if that is their compelling interest that drives their economic posture, then given the fact that the property tax authority lies with this particular jurisdiction, with the county of Sacramento, why wouldn't we look at ways that we could have some type of an arrangement, whether it's contractual or otherwise, with participating landlords to provide some kind of tax and property tax incentive so that there's an agreement that the rents for those participating units would be provided at below market rates. So in other words, the landlords would be made whole. The provision of affordable housing could be achieved by way of some agreement that the participating rental rates would not exceed a certain percentage below market rate. And of course, it would have to be paid for. And I'm suggesting today that we look to our general fund, we look to our reserves, which are getting healthier, but as Amanda pointed out, are still we're still just below halfway of what the standard should be. But again, the reserves are intended for dire circumstances, and I would challenge anyone to tell me that we're not in that dire circumstance right now in terms of the dearth of affordable housing. What I'm suggesting is what I believe to be a modest amount to be parked or set aside for the current budget year at $5 million to build a pilot project around this concept that I've generally outlined here today, and see how it works. And in the meantime, before any tax incentive was to be made available, of course, there'd be some legwork that would have to be done in terms of the mechanics of how it would work, and of course, with the advice of County Counsel's office to understand the do's and don'ts legally of what we can and cannot do. There's been some discussion that perhaps it be in the form of a rebate, a tax rebate, thereby kind of thwarting the expectation that we'd have to seek time-consuming efforts at enabling legislation similar to the Williamson Act. But that is the idea, and we've had very robust discussion in June, and certainly just with the staff presentation today and some of the questions that we have posed from the dais around homelessness and affordable housing. But outside of our housing authority, the county itself really doesn't get too much into the affordable housing business. And I'm not suggesting we do that, but I'm suggesting we work within the taxing authority that we do possess to at least try something different, be creative, do something that hasn't been done before, at least from some of the research that County Counsel's office has done and I've done personally. I don't think it's been done in the state of California by any county. But that is generally, Mr. Chair, the idea that I'd like to put out there for consideration. And again, it would be for a pilot, so it's not, I'm not suggesting that we institutionalize this without some ability to have a look back to see how effective it is or isn't. But I think we're obligated to try. So that's what I would like to suggest.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Stern. I know a couple of colleagues are in the queue. Just wanted to ask, this would be for a prescribed period of time. The Williamson Act, and you may have talked to that, was, basically upon entry is 20 years, and then it's a 10-year evergreen clause once you march down to 10. Gives both parties, it gives the party who entered it the ability to choose to exit or not. And so you would be talking about a prescribed, and hence maybe some of the funding set aside, because if you were going to fund this, you'd have to do, if you're going to enter into some contractual arrangement with a landlord, property owner to accomplish that, it would be for prescribed period of time, which you didn't specify, which would be part of the discussion in the future. But
yeah, I think that'd be part of the mechanics, Mr. Chair, in terms of, figuring out what we think, because it's not been done before, what an optimal time frame would be, because obviously we don't want to have it be too short, too brief. We'd like it to have some very similar characteristics to the Williamson Act in terms of it running with the property. So I think all those details could be worked out in the coming months, should be the will of the board to support this concept.
Okay, so I have Supervisor Frost and Supervisor Desmond in the queue.
I guess I have a question for our county executive and our budget director to say how would this impact our budget? There's a defined number of, I guess, agricultural businesses, but there's a huge amount of need when it comes to affordable housing. And so how do you pick which apartment complex or which property owner? How do you make that decision? And can we even require I guess this is for county council, can we require a property owner to, can we put requirements on them regarding what they can charge for rent if they are, part of this program? So I guess this is, I hadn't heard anything, so I'm just wondering how it impacts our budget, and can we actually do something like that?
So I'll take the first piece, and then Ms. Travis can take the second piece. So we would have to take the money out of one of our reserve categories, because the rest is all budgeted unless you decide to not do something that we've talked about today. We would have to, this would be voluntary on the part of a property owner. And so we have not worked out the details. We've had 2 very brief conversations. So we would have to engage planning staff and finance staff to help us figure out what this would all look like. And as Supervisor Cerna said, it would be a pilot. So we would start small so that we could identify, how this works and is it having the impact we want. This would at least start out to be a homeless prevention program, because our vacancy rate of apartments in the county of Sacramento is very, very low, so it's hard to find a vacant unit. So it would primarily be a reduction in rent for folks who are currently housed, which is a good thing because so many folks are rent burdened right now and potentially on the brink of homelessness. So, but then as units vacate, then we would be able to house folks who are potentially homeless when they move in.
I would just interrupt there for a second and add, Ann's completely right in terms of it being kind of preemptive to make sure that household that's that one paycheck away doesn't fall into the circumstance of homelessness. However, we also know too well that in this marketplace that our housing choice voucher system is struggling immensely in terms of finding willing participants in the voucher system, landlords that are willing to take the vouchers. So I think there's probably an opportunity to explore how it might be used to incent the use of those vouchers, which are oftentimes people that are homeless today. So that is something I think we'd have to look at.
Agreed.
And I'll just echo the county executive's comments regarding the voluntariness of this program. So any potential landlord that wanted to participate would be doing so voluntarily. So the county would not be forcing any participants, to address your question. As we obviously see it today. That's the goal.
Thank you. I'll yield for now.
Okay, great. Thanks. Supervisor Desmond.
Thanks, Chair. And
No, this is a very innovative idea. Certainly, I'm someone who much prefers ways to create incentives to both maintain units in affordable housing and to promote additional affordable housing. And I'm glad you mentioned that was going to be one of my questions to Supervisor Cerna. Was it going to be just focused on current affordable housing units to try to maintain them as such and possibly create a better mechanism to incentivize landlords to accept emergency housing vouchers? Or could it be something, and I know that as a pilot, a limited amount of funds, would it be something also that might incentivize new construction of affordable housing?
No, it's a great question. I would point to the fact that we actually have that. Is my mic on? Yeah.
It seems like.
We actually have that system available now. It's a tax credit system for the provision of affordable housing. So, in fact, it's actually a good reminder that there is some kind of parallel precedent here because of that system. That's basically a tax incentive for the provision of new affordable housing. This would be a tax incentive for the provision of affordable housing that is below market rate rents for existing. So it would be kind of a complement to what we actually have now for new.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. Yeah, for the preservation of our existing inventory, which we do not want to jeopardize, certainly. It seems like it's just such a tough nut for us to crack in Sacramento County to both maintain current inventory and attract more affordable housing. Okay. Well, thank you. That's all I have for now.
Okay. I just would say, too, that in June we had a discussion about the scatter site housing, which we're able to typically working with our nonprofit partners to, again, provide housing in a small congregate setting of 6 or less in most cases, in single-family settings in large part. And it would seem to me that there's an opportunity to, if you incorporate the idea, you look at multifamily properties, but I know in the single-family, as relates to the scatter site housing, we're out there competing in the market as well. And if you had this tool, whoever we were partnering with, to go out to a landlord and say, we're looking to do this. Obviously, it's voluntary, but they would have this in the toolkit to go to that landlord. So you could actually then assure that you could have, both the housing set aside for that period of time, somebody contractually, but you would have the rent factored in, because we're paying out of general fund, if I'm not mistaken, Ann, for scatter site housing, and we're paying market rate in a lot of cases, again, working with, certainly our nonprofit partners. And so it seems to me that there's some real opportunity here to use this in different ways. Again, it would be voluntary. It's going to be limited. There's not unlimited, with the amount of money talked about here, it's a sizable chunk, but certainly depending upon how you build it, you're going to have to endow it, and that's the other thing. So I think, if you're looking at setting money aside, you probably wouldn't spend that in year one. You might not spend that even over the course of 2 or 3, but over the period of time, once you decided on that, then you'd have to have that endowment set aside as a reserve or some other mechanism. So, but I think it has, a lot of merit, and, if you're, looking at ways to try to be creative and to, basically stabilize for folks that are either housing insecure and or are, homeless or formerly homeless, this is a way, I think, to incentivize at the local level. I don't know what the tools we have, certainly when it comes to looking at the issue, are somewhat limited, but this might be a good way to be creative, and I think it is a good way to be creative and maybe incentivize folks to be a partner with us in trying to address the issue that faces us across the spectrum. So, Supervisor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Supervisor Cerna, for coming up with, a creative idea. And I think we do need to find incentives to get more people in this marketplace, as well as make our processes and procedures easier and less expensive. This is, it almost sounds like, a long time ago, Section 8 idea to incentivize property owners to want to participate. Whether the market's there or not now, I don't know, but it's certainly something that is very, very worthy of more discussion and, find out what the details are and how it would shake out. One thing I will just give my regular cautionary tale is when it comes to scattered site housing, the per person cost of scattered site housing, I realize that it's popular for a number of reasons, but the per person cost and the sustainability is questionable. I mean, when you're housing 5 or 6 people at a time, that's going to be very difficult to do anything that is significant in the community. So I guess my point of that is, and plus the fact that it's very difficult to find operators at this point with the capacity to continue to do scattered site housing. If we were to go down that road and look at it to get the most bang for our buck and help people who need to be housed, I think it's got to be multifamily. The single family housing scattered to 2,000 houses is not going to ever happen. It's not going to happen at 500 houses. And we have a crisis of such magnitude that without looking at multifamily housing opportunities, we're just never going to get there. Thank you.
I would just add that this is, the concept is really aimed at just that, because I agree. I don't think the economies of scale work or the efficiency of what we're attempting to do works with lower density housing.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure, go ahead.
Didn't the board in June set aside a very modest amount of funds for increased scattered site?
Another $1 million.
$1
million.
Thank you.
Have we had success in that realm?
Well, no, we're struggling.
Yeah. Okay. If I could, though, I guess my point being that we look at housing across the spectrum, and you look at transitional, you look at permanently supportive. You look at certainly the numbers that need to be tackled here. And I guess that was the reason for my suggestion, was to take a look at that, is that if you're going to incentivize, because not everybody necessarily fits into the apartment setting, not everybody fits in the transitional, not everybody fits in the congregate 6 to a household. Again, we don't have unlimited dollars nor unlimited programmatic ability here. But again, that's why I suggested that, again, recognizing we're trying to go to scale, yeah, you're going to look at multifamily apartment complexes, and you'll get much greater numbers. But I guess I just think, again, as we're talking about this, that at least look to that as a consideration. Or it might be that you modify your scattered site approach. I mean, if you bring vouchers to the table and you buy into that, there's a way to maybe to assist, and so that you help people move through the spectrum. Some folks may go directly from being housing unstable to to a supported unit. And it works just fine. But we know that there's a variety of different circumstances, and so again, I think that if we're looking to create something that creates the opportunity and gives us stability, so we can count on that number of available units over time, then we ought to at least be open to that consideration. So recognizing what both you and Supervisor Kennedy said, Mr. Cernan. Sure. Okay. Supervisor Frost.
So I just want to ask, you're talking about a property tax incentive, and so this isn't setting aside $5 million from our general fund. It's actually reaching into our property tax, which to me is our most stable form of income, or one of them.
Right, but our general fund is funded obviously in part by property tax, so that's the idea, that it would come out of reserves out of this budget for the pilot.
And absent a legislative change, we cannot reduce someone's property tax. So it is very likely what we would have to do is the property owner would have to pay the property tax, and then we would figure out a formula to do a rebate based on the rent reductions to a below market value rent rate. So it would definitely come directly from the general fund. Even if we did a property tax reduction, it would hit the general fund because we wouldn't then be getting that
so
revenue.
It's technically not connected to the property tax.
Although that's how we would do the formula to calculate the rebate. But you're right, it doesn't come from property tax.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So we had that idea on the table. We're going to come back. Let me go with my colleagues, because I have a few items I wanted to touch on. But let me ask my other colleagues about other items for consideration for coming back for deliberations in the afternoon. Suggestions, and again, let's get them out on the table. So, Supervisor Desmond, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we I agree in prioritizing reserves. I mean, I fear the rainy days coming back. But also, as I was thinking about the budget and driving around my district, I think a lot. And I've taken our county exec on a tour of the district with me, and Supervisor Frost and Chair Natoli. And, you know, driving around a lot of these unincorporated areas, particularly environmental justice communities, of which there are 4 in the unincorporated community, something that always really strikes me is the, I think, proliferation of blight, vacant properties, really run down landscaped areas along some of the streetscapes. So something I've been, and I think that's a result of, by and large, the county's role as a municipal services entity in these unincorporated areas, a role that counties, frankly, you know, aren't accustomed to doing. We're not created to do or to do well. So it's something I've been thinking about, and I wanted to propose this to my colleagues and see what they think about it, is setting aside some funds as a neighborhood improvement initiative. To really address blight and streetscape beautification along commercial corridors and neighborhood roads in unincorporated Sacramento County. And I would say maybe a majority of these funds would be dedicated specifically for environmental justice communities, where we really have seen, I guess, the lack of county investment and engagement is most profound in these communities. And my idea would be, you know, some things to consider would be street, and a lot of this would, you know, we're investing a lot of money to improve the roadways in a lot of these communities, which is great, but a lot of times the streetscape doesn't come along with that. And so we're leaving large swaths of areas where we may not get to the roadways for a long time, but the street lighting, the above ground utility poles, the landscaping, whether that's on private property or a publicly maintained area, is really run down. And some areas we've done a great job, clearly in the unincorporated areas, but it feels like in some of the lower income communities in particular, it's worse. But landscaping and even including strategies to encourage transforming vacant parcels into housing or new businesses. And I think to myself, who might be involved in something like this? I certainly DOT, maybe even code enforcement from the county, park districts, neighborhood community associations, PBIDs, chambers, and maybe CPACs could become a venue where ideas could be proposed. And I know this is more conceptual at this point, but I think it's certainly a big need in the unincorporated county, and my proposal would be to rope off $3 million for this purpose. And those are my thoughts, and curious what my colleagues think about it.
Okay, Supervisor Frost.
Well, I'm always a proponent for more reserves, and I also feel grateful that you, Ann Edwards and Amanda and all the deputy county executives and all the departments have done such a great job helping us get here. I think these ideas have real merit, and I just, regarding Supervisor Cerna's thoughts, I support the idea of a pilot and trying something and thoughtfully working through that. I don't know how to do as much as we need, so it would just be like everything else. It seems like we're doing everything we can, so I support trying a different angle, although I'm also still really excited about the safe stays and one that's potentially going to be in my district. So I hope that's still moving forward. And I really like your idea, Supervisor Desmond. and the idea that we could maybe work through the P-bids and, I'm hoping we can do this in a way that's not just throwing money at something, but that we thoughtfully think through it, so that there's a plan that, we have confidence is going to work forward. That's all. I guess what you're suggesting is holding that money aside in the budget and then beginning the process to work through it. Is that what you're both suggesting? I think that's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
For me,
that was certainly my thought as well. Yeah, and I've done some research. Center for Community Progress, Urban Institute. There've been an awful lot of scholarly articles about the impacts of blight and vacant parcels in communities, from an economic perspective, and also there's one great quote: "Vacant and blighted properties make people feel less safe and less proud of their neighborhoods." I mean, I think that is a real problem in a lot of our communities in the unincorporated county, especially in the environmental justice communities, certainly. So,
and I think the ordinance that we just passed is going to go a long way to helping this situation also around the communities. So I guess those are my thoughts. I don't have extra requests. I was excited about the reserves. It doesn't look like it's going that direction, but we have some new exciting projects to wrap our heads around. So thank you.
Haven't heard them all yet.
Yeah, no, it's like.
Yeah, that's for last.
Supervisor Cerna, thanks.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. I appreciate Supervisor Desmond's interest and comments, and they're all well taken. I like the idea of a kind of a different team approach that involves all the groups that Mr. Desmond suggested, code and P-bids and DOT. I can't help but reflect on the fact that, and there's a lot of different reasons for it, but there are other parts of the district I represent that are in the city of Sacramento that are currently really suffering quite a bit in terms of the feeling of the corridor being safe and clean, and I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a tipping point at some point in time where people begin to divest themselves in where they live and where they go to work, where they play, where they worship, and I think it's incumbent upon us to do what we can when we feel it as palpably as we do that is looming to try and intervene and do something different. So I'd be entirely supportive of what Supervisor Desmond has suggested.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Supervisor Kennedy.
Thank you. Just briefly, I too would be supportive. One thing is to include SHRA in the discussion. I know that in South Sacramento we've been very successful working with SHRA and CDBG money for exactly what you're talking about, LED lighting. When I got elected, they said, well, we don't do lighting in existing neighborhoods. And I said, that's stupid. They, not anybody at SHRA, and SHRA stepped up and we worked together, and we've gotten a lot of lighting in there, as well as DOT has been a very good partner. Done the same thing in parks with, even though we don't have county parks in District 2, they're Southgate primarily, worked with Southgate to replace dilapidated, defunct play areas in parks. That's been very successful, and all that's been done with CDBG, so I think that needs to be a part of the conversation as well.
Good suggestion. Yeah, I would just speak to it. I think good comments by my colleagues. But the livability, and I think often we focus in on the enforcement side of it, code enforcement, or some other aspect of that. And I think as we talk through this, that there are some dollars, obviously block grant for some of the environmental justice neighborhoods. Not every place in the county is eligible, but some may still have some of the circumstances that as Supervisor Desmond pointed out. And I think that there a lot to be said for, like the livability, the quality of life, and a lot of things we do certainly affect the quality of life. But part of it is that when some of our older established neighborhoods have seen the wear and tear just of time, and and whether it's vacant lots or it's properties that you need some freshening up. Again, obviously there's the private sector part of this and the public sector, but I think the county can be a good partner. And again, we talked earlier about the property tax system and so forth. Well, that is a revenue generator certainly for this county, and and it's not just about property values. It's about the quality of life within those homes, within those domiciles, within those neighborhoods. And I think it's probably long past due. We've taken some of these on in bits and pieces over the years, but I would concur that both suggestions, they're sizable sums of money. But I do think that if we're going to invest in neighborhoods and in people from all walks of life, then I think that these are modest amounts as characterized what we're trying to do. Obviously, when the problem gets more severe and people are unhoused or have other serious issues, and so I would see that what you suggested, Supervisor Desmond, and again I think the partners you outlined, again maybe some investments in the parks, working with your CPACs, with your PBIDs, all of those things, are good. And again, to me, $3 million is a very modest amount. And again, I probably won't be here for full program development in the months ahead. But I think it's exciting, and I think it's a compliment to some of the other comments we heard today in the correspondence. It's about if people are going, and they're going to live somewhere, and and if they can pick and choose, maybe their economics will drive where they can pick and choose. It ought to be as nice in a modest neighborhood as it is somewhere else in the community, and so I think that this is an opportunity to at least be a catalyst for that. So I'm very supportive of your idea, and again, to me, we look at reserves, but we make expenditures for lots of different things, and embodied in this $7 billion plus budgets are a lot of things that are important to life, to daily life in this community, and certainly to its safety and to the quality of life. But I think these are modest proposals, so I'm very supportive. Let me ask my colleagues, are there any other thoughts? I had a couple I wanted to reference. One, if I could, then going to the revenue side, and I think it's important for future years. It's not in this year's budget, but with the opening of the new Sky River Casino in Elk Grove, the county some years ago negotiated an agreement with the Wilton Rancheria, and I appreciate Amanda following up to my question. And I think it was sent to other members of the board, but there will be a new revenue source that will be generated in the 23-24 budget. It'll start out fairly modest, but I think it's important to track that because it'll be dollars into the general fund. It'll also be dollars into both drug and alcohol treatment and domestic violence programs. And so, again, recognizing the budget process we use, but for the following fiscal year, 23-24, it'll be $915,000. $215,000 will go to county road maintenance, and there are some specificities regarding that in the MOU. But by year 6, the amount to the general fund will amount to about $2 million annually under the agreement, and that will be in perpetuity, or as long as that casino is there. And so I think it's important to recognize that. There may be other impacts that people will recognize as a part of that. There was agreement struck with the city of Elk Grove as well. But I guess my specific request to this, it's not dollars for this year. I wanted to point it out for one, but secondly, I think, and it would be important to have, a budget page that shows those revenues so that, ever how it's recommended to appropriate them, that the board would know going forward those dollars will come in, and there will be a certainty to them. Some will go to specific program areas to address issues that have been anticipated. Others will be available to the budget folks and certainly to this board. So I wanted to point that out. That's an important revenue source if you're looking to the future. A couple of requests that I wanted to, and one, I think we actually dealt with it in June, but I guess we needed to have some additional direction around this, and you may be able to help me with this as it relates to some work that was done in the dollars that were set aside for Department of Transportation for the revenue replacement. Over the last few months, we've determined that the public walkways in the community of Locke, the boardwalks are actually within public domain, and they're in need of some repair. But in order to try to facilitate, I think, and again, I appreciate your efforts, that of Dave DeFonte and others, to try to find a elegant way to address that. That I think it was contemplated that would be a set aside of $100,000 that would we would work with the Lock Management Association, and it would be secured dollars, but would be for that particular purpose, because it was thought for the better part of 20 years that those were somehow under jurisdiction of the town association, and to the contrary, that's not the case. And so I don't know if you wanted to help on this, but I wanted to make sure it was pointed out, so if you needed any additional authorization in the budget.
Yeah, as long as you all agree, we can definitely set aside the $100,000 out of the revenue replacement transfer.
A one-time.
One-time, yes.
Right. Okay. So looking at kind of to the larger initiatives, one thing that occurred to me, and again, this is an outgrowth of something that I think got interrupted by the pandemic, but I know that my colleagues will recall, I know Supervisor Desmond may have gotten via certainly observing the board, but back in 2019, we had quite a lively discussion, I think, in our board retreat that year, a good discussion about being an age-friendly community as we see the growing population of seniors in our community, and some of the things that we could do across departments, certainly under the leadership of the County Exec's Office, but in working with our community partners. And if I recall correctly, that there was actually discussion at the time, and then there was a presentation later in 2020 to the board about actually having a position that would be a designated party within the exec's office to, oversee and to coordinate those activities. And it just occurs to me that as we're looking to certainly move out of the pandemic, but that we know what's been described as a silver tsunami is coming, and that folks that we talk about, folks who are fragile and vulnerable as it relates to their living circumstances. A lot of folks who are well into their years are living on minimal incomes. They're still housed. Some are housing insecure, no question. But folks are living longer, and I think as we talk about the quality of life and certainly services that this county provides, we're not the only ones. The Area 4 Agency on Aging, which we contribute to, funds some services. But I guess what I wanted to suggest, and I did it very briefly in my briefing with the county executive, was, again, I don't have anything specific, but I do think that there's the opportunity for us to begin to chart a course that gets us, one, prepared, but also allows folks to continue living independently, if possible, with services that be either provided by our nonprofit partners or by the county. And one of the things that has diminished in recent years, and some of it just because of the budgetary crunch, and I think some of the costs that were associated with it, but the peer support for the senior community and folks who may be isolated, whose family may be distant, but certainly desire to remain independent within their living situation. But that peer support is so very important, and it's not something that gets funded out of federal dollars typically for as meals might, or some medical attention or something like that, where the folks that might be reliant on a friend or a neighbor, and a lot of folks do that. But I guess I would just suggest that to set aside some dollars to allow this board, certainly under your guidance, and to look at an initiative that would begin to, again, I think encompass what we said we were going to do in being an age-friendly community, and there are a lot of elements that went with that particular designation, and they didn't all have money associated with them. But it seems to me, as we're talking about initiatives, that this would be one. And I guess I would suggest that if we set aside $500,000, again, under this board's authority to develop an initiative in working with our Child, Family, Adult Services division, but I think across the spectrum. And again, I certainly give the innovation and initiative, to the executive's office and her team to come before this board at a future juncture. But again, I don't see the issue as diminishing. It's only going to grow. And we want people to have, in any walk of life, in any age, to certainly have a dignified setting that we're able to. A lot of these folks have some wherewithal, but they're fragile and they're vulnerable. And as people live longer, I just think it's important as a community to maybe, nothing else, fund some additional volunteer coordination that helps the community to be a part of this, because we all have a role in it, and so I'm going to offer that as something for consideration to come back at 2:00. And again, I don't have much more than what I've suggested here, but I think it piggybacks on something that we said we were going to do. We've been very limited in that capacity thus far, but I think we have the ability to go forward and take a look at this. So I don't know, Ann, if you wanted to.
Yes. Are you recommending a specific dollar figure for this?
$500,000 to set aside. Yeah. Okay, a couple others. And one, we had discussion at the June budget, and actually under the guise of the ARPA guided funds, I had suggested from District 5, and it looks like it wasn't going to be a fit, to do some expansion of the hospital, the animal hospital at the County Bradshaw shelter. And I wanted to say thank you to David Villanueva and certainly Annette Bedsworth and Jeff Gassaway. They did some reconnaissance on this since our discussion in June, and it looks as though ARPA monies wouldn't fit for what was needed there. But I would just note that our animal care facility is now 15 years old. It's certainly newer than a lot of county buildings, but nonetheless, a lot of activity. And I think reflecting on, again, the commitment that this board, and again, I want to thank my colleagues and thank the executive team. Over the years, we've really, I think, begun to put in place, something that's exemplary for other communities and reflects, I think, well on our care for the four-legged critters in our community that certainly come into the shelter. But we know that spay and neuter and certainly some of the life-saving things that are done at the shelter to get pets rehabilitated or future pets were really hampered. The hospital was not, clinic was not nearly big enough at the time. And so I did look at the funding and, again, tried to have an offset here. And I did note that going back into the budget that we were fortunate because I think on the Valley Oak Youth Academy, there was about $1.2 million that got funded differently and was suggested to go back into general fund. And some of that probably spilled over to the reserves. My understanding is, and maybe David could help with this, Villanueva, but that the estimate is about $1.5 million to actually do the clinic expansion. David, is that? Because I had suggested ARPA money to do a modular. Apparently, the modular would cost more than the hospital revamp. But you might want to just give me the specifics.
Yes, Supervisor Natoli. Again, David Villanueva, Deputy County Executive. We did look at two options to expand the recovery area and the veterinarian and hospital area for the animal care center. The one option was to set up some sort of portable or some sort of temporary structure outside because of the infrastructure that's needed to have the various medical and utilities going out to that became more expensive to be put outside. So we've moved to a different suggestion or recommendation, which was to expand some of the current building and move out into a certain storage area and maybe expand the walls, if you would. Okay. Our estimate right now is about $1.5 million to do that.
That'd be a one-time expenditure, correct?
That's correct. That'd be a one-time expenditure.
Okay. So with that information, again, certainly would suggest that we set aside that capital for to do the improvements to the animal hospital. And again, I think there would be cost savings, again, attributed over time if we were able to expand spay-neuter activities in this community, which are dire, is certainly in dire need. I think people are really stretched to the max. It will hopefully help us to address some of the inflow, which again, adoption and fostering, those things are really important. But that's when they arrive. If we can hopefully stem some of the numbers through good spay and neuter programs, I think that we all benefit in that way. So,
Mr. Chair, can I ask you a question about the request? So this would be for another surgical bay?
Yes, it would be expanded surgical.
And it would only be dedicated for spay-neuter or other surgical needs?
No, it would be available to the hospital. It would be set up so they could do more volume of spay-neuter, but it would be expansion of the clinic there currently.
And that comes with all the equipment that would be needed?
David, you need to answer.
That's correct. We factored in all the equipment, surgery equipment, and other veterinary equipment
Then we just need the veterinarians, right?
Yeah, well, I think we got
in July or in June, you did approve a veterinarian and 2 RVTs, which is veterinary
We
technicians.
approved those positions, but are they filled?
No.
Yeah.
But we did advertise them. Actually, I take that back. The approval was postponed until it's on your budget now to be approved. So, but we made that recommendation, and I think Ms. Bedsworth made that recommendation when she did the workshop. She has been out advertising. She has been looking for vets. As you know, other community animal care shelters are having a hard time also finding veterinarians. So, but we're fortunate to have the 2 we have. They're fantastic and do outstanding work, but we are still looking for a 3rd. And we're also looking for other opportunities to bring them in, maybe on part-time basis or something different. But she's being very creative in trying to get those staff in.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Desmond.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I get a question for David. When we went out there on the tour recently with you and you and Annette, I think it was, right? Another issue was even with the existing equipment and surgery bays that they have a real limitation in terms of the recovery space,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
So even if it's just additional space, with the current veterinarians we have, they'd be able to increase their capacity in terms of the spay and neuter. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was recalling that correctly.
That's correct. I would just add that the veterinarians have to have eyes on their patients as they're recovering, and the way that hospital was built doesn't allow for as many recovery areas, so that this investment would include additional recovery areas.
Okay, thank you.
Or larger recovery areas, sorry.
Good point, though. That's exactly right. Even with current staffing, you could probably do more. So, and lastly, this would be it's a modest amount, but and I actually was going through the budget here the last couple of days that we've had a category for a long time, wildlife services. Basically, that's been the component funding for the federal trapper services that deal with skunks and in some cases coyotes in the county unincorporated. Well, actually, city and county, I believe. But we also have, and again, thanks to this board, we've funded for a number of years a nonprofit partner, Wildlife Care Services, which provide both relief to shelter systems in the county for wildlife, possums, raccoons, coyotes, a lot of birds and so forth. And it may not sound like a very important aspect, but it is because I think the interface, and part of this goes to the interface with a growing community, that as we grow closer to waterways and corridors and so forth, the wildlife wind up sometimes injured, but other times people encounter birds that have fallen from the nest, injured animals and so forth. Animal Care responds to some of those, both cities and county, but other times people bring those into Wildlife Care. They've been providing a service to this community for well over 25 years. Depend upon a pretty strong volunteer network, and this county has contributed over time for a number of years $10,000 annually, and then it was increased a couple of years ago to, I believe, $35,000 annually. They continue, though, to struggle with the numbers. In fact, during COVID, they saw increase from about 6,000 animals of all different types. I described some of them to over 7,500, and that's held up the last couple of years. And the animals come from all over the county. They're not from out of county, and they do have folks that actually care for the animals in their homes. But they have a center out at McClellan. I know some of you have visited the old radar dome there. But my specific request is that we raise their annual contribution. Again, it's done with a contract. This board has approved it annually, so to $85,000 a year, which would help them sustain the activity. And I would also suggest it might even put it under wildlife services, under that category. It's been administered out of the exec's office for a number of years, and thank you to Ann and her predecessors. But it might appropriately fall there. We talk about some of the predatory animals and nuisance animals, but here there's a services provided that really does, I think, show a good concern for the space we inhabit with the critters of the world. So that's my other request. So,
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would just comment, too, that given the nature of our weather the last 72 hours, if you've communicated with those folks, they're getting inundated with requests for assistance for, all the mammals and birds that you've mentioned by name that are suffering with 116-degree heat outside. So just another reminder of the services that they provide in the very immediate time frame.
Let me ask you, does squirrel survive?
We don't know yet.
Yeah, he was on a rescue mission over the weekend too. So, okay.
Supervisor Natoli, was that an increase up to an annual contribution of $85,000?
Yeah.
Okay, so plus
yeah.
50. Yeah.
Yeah, plus 50. Yeah.
Okay,
From what it is currently. Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
All right. That's all I had on the list. So, any other things for consideration for the 2 o'clock session? Okay. You guys, is 2 o'clock even enough time? You want till 3?
Let's just say 2:15 to be safe. I just want to make sure that Amanda and her staff have time to
that's fine, sure.
work on all this.
Okay.
So reconvene at 2:15.
Okay, so we're going to go to closed session now.
Yes.
And then we'll come back in chambers at 2:15.
And
so.
we are in the smaller conference room upstairs because the larger one is in use. Just so.
Okay, well, we're going to put the smaller one in use as well. So. No.
Seventh floor. Seventh floor. We'll direct you. I just wanted to let you know we're not going into the usual room.
I apologize, could I ask a clarifying question for all of the requests on the table? I understand the wildlife care would be an annual contribution. Are the others intended as one time, or are there any that we should consider as annual?
The $5 million I've requested is for the life of the pilot. So,
Rich?
My request is one time. Thank you.
And then I think for the senior initiative, if you're going to embark on something, I would say that would probably be, once it was put in place, that you would have some sort of an annualized amount in fairness. So, I mean, it would be $500,000 to start it out. Again, this board would need to develop it working with, the appropriate staff. So, whether it's more or less than that, I don't know. But I would think that would probably be something going forward if you're going to just do a one-year initiative. So, okay.
And can I?
Yeah, sure.
So I imagine on Supervisor Cerna's proposal, of which I'm supportive, this is obviously relating to affordable housing. That's an ARPA eligible expenditure. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I'd like to also propose that out of that $5 million, that $1 million of it come from the District 3 tranche, second tranche of ARPA funding for the first year anyway, this first year.
I appreciate that. My only concern is because the time limits on ARPA, we may not know the lifespan of the pilot. So is there any concern from staff about that?
Well, right. So certainly, if it were to be funded with ARPA, it would have to be committed by the end of 2024 and expended by 2026. So we have that limitation. The other thing is, while affordable housing is generally ARPA eligible, I couldn't guarantee today that this program, as it eventually, would be implemented, would be, because I think there's some details still to be worked out.
Okay. Well, I'll withdraw the offer then.
Well, we can explore that as part of our analysis of this project, and of course, if we did do that and it was eligible, we would just spend the ARPA money first.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And the reason I brought it up, just being cognizant of, obviously, this is going to certainly require an alteration of your strategy for reserves. So, all right, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? If not, then we will stand in recess until 2:15 into closed session. Okay, good afternoon. I want to call back into open session the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors for September the 7th, 2022, in our budget adoption hearings. And with that, I'll ask Flo to recall the roll to establish a quorum.
Okay, Supervisors Cerna?
Here.
Kennedy? Here. Desmond? Here. Frost? Here. Natoli?
Here.
And you have a quorum.
Very good. Okay, we're back from the morning session, and I'll turn to our county executive, Ms. Edwards.
Thank you, Supervisor Natoli. And I'm going to turn it directly over to Ms. Thomas, who will review with you a spreadsheet that I think you all have, highlighting the changes that you have asked us to make.
Very good. Okay.
Okay. Amanda Thomas, County Chief Fiscal Officer. So the table that you have and that's displayed here on the screens is showing the changes that were directed before the break. So at the very top, what we are showing is the change to what we had recommended as an additional contribution to the Service Stability Reserve. So we had recommended about $59.7 million additional compared to the approved budget. With these augmentations, we would now be contributing $10 million less than that, so an additional contribution of about $49.7 million. So that's an additional augmentations of $10,050,000 as detailed on the middle of this table, and I'll go through each of these just to explain the budget change that's being reflected. So the first would be a $50,000 increase to Wildlife Care Association support. So this additional $50,000 would come out of the non-departmental costs budget, which is where that is currently budgeted. As suggested by Supervisor Natoli, we will look next year, does this perhaps make more sense to be budgeted in wildlife services, but for the time being, we would recommend leaving it in non-departmental costs. The next line is the $1.5 million cost of the animal care facility expansion. So this would be $1.5 million budgeted in animal care. You'll see at the bottom of the screen and on the back of your page, there's another transaction associated with that, which is the $1.5 million in the capital construction fund to actually construct the facility. But this would be $1.5 million of general fund in animal care's budget that would reimburse those capital expenditures in the capital construction fund.
And that's for the clinic hospital expansion, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And then we have $100,000 Lock Management Association support that would be funded from ARPA revenue replacement. Offsetting that, there's $100,000 less that would be going to the Department of Transportation. So those two offset each other. And then there are also some offsetting transactions that would actually happen within the roads fund, and you see those on the back of the sheet and at the bottom of the table as well. And then $3 million that we're recommending be budgeted in the neighborhood revitalization budget for neighborhood improvement, the neighborhood improvement initiative recommended by Supervisor Desmond that would be targeting blighted communities. So that would be $3 million of general fund that would be budgeted in neighborhood revitalization. And actually, now, as I'm saying that would show up as a general fund transfer, I believe, to the Neighborhood Revitalization Fund, and that neighborhood revitalization would be another below the line that actually isn't displayed here. But $3 million net impact to the general fund. And then we are recommending a reserve be established for the $500,000 suggested by Supervisor Natoli for senior programs. So that the details of which would be to be determined, but that would be a reserve that would exist in the general fund. And then similarly, we're recommending a reserve of $5 million for the program recommended by Supervisor Cerna, which would be a reserve for affordable housing. And this says tax, I apologize. That should just say affordable housing incentive pilot program, the details of which would be to be determined. So those augmentations total to the $10,050,000. As I mentioned, we're recommending that would reduce what otherwise would be contributed to the Service Stability Reserve.
Okay,
I'm happy
thanks,
to take
Ann.
any questions.
Supervisor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. To the CEO, so those categories that details to be determined, how do you procedurally see that happening?
We will be putting together teams of department heads and staff to work on planning efforts, and then we'll communicate with board members, particularly those who made the suggestions.
Okay, thank you.
Would you think, come back to the board, though, with a kind of a development of the program once it's...
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
In all cases, I think it's good to know.
Well, we'll come back.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. We'll come back with some recommendations or a recommendation. But the planning piece of it will be a team of folks, and we've already had some preliminary conversations with some folks who will participate on those teams.
Very good. Okay, thanks. Okay, other questions for Amanda or for Ann? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Amanda. Okay, so I'll bring it back to the board. We took public comment this morning. So we have a series of motions, and I don't know if you wanted to step down through that. They're included in the staff recommendation, but if there's any alterations to any of that, otherwise we can, I guess, put it all in one motion. So
I'm going to look to Ms. Travis. Can we do that all in one motion, Lisa, and just make reference to the changes?
Yes, that'll be fine.
Okay. Get to the staff report here. Okay, well, Supervisor Desmond and then Supervisor Cerna, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just, start by certainly thanking my colleagues and thanking staff and our county exec for all your work on the budget. I move approval of the budget with the changes that were just outlined by Amanda Thomas.
Okay, we have a motion. Supervisor Cerna, you're up.
And I'll second the motion with thanks to our staff, especially during the last hour and a half or so, for coming up with and recognizing some of the recommended changes that the board has put forth.
Okay, any other comments by supervisors? I'll make some comments after we do the vote. So we do have a motion and a second that would encompass all of the attached resolutions and referenced material, and as noted, certainly in the record for the changes that were made that were just outlined by Amanda in her report back. So with that then, that's the motion and second. Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Unanimous vote.
Very good. Well, let me just take the opportunity certainly to thank County Executive Edwards and certainly Amanda Thomas, the whole team of certainly the deputy county executives and department heads, all the folks that contribute to the budget complement that comes out in many hundreds of pages and really is a very strong tutorial on what county does relative to programs and services. There's a lot of information here, not just position-wise but and dollar-wise, but tells you a lot about the many, many facets of county services and programs. And it really, again, this year, obviously, we heard from folks, and there have been, certainly dedicated sources of funding and a tremendous amount of thought we've gone into trying to, balance some of the things that we hear about frequently relative to human services and to law and justice and to social services and to the magnitude, many things that encompass the magnitude of what the county does in the overall. So I want to just say thank you to our staff, certainly to my colleagues. This is my final budget, and after 28 years, I'll just say that been some roller coaster ride at times, but this year, obviously, with the ability to continue to build back reserves, to look at some, I think, initiatives and program themes that will serve this county well going forward. And I think the budget process, certainly under your guidance, Ms. Edwards, has been outstanding. I know you've worked with the community survey, with trying to bring more transparency, and I think, information that we received from folks as recently as this morning are a compliment to all that, because people are able to, one, see the document, but also see the work that you and your team are doing, what the county obviously is presented with, and this board is then trusted to take action on. But all that body of information is very important. So I want to just say thank you once again to all of you, certainly your predecessors, and I know that next year when we have a new chair, likely Mr. Desmond, that it'll be in good hands with he and the rest of my colleagues here. But this was probably one of the, I guess. I won't say easier, but because there's always a lot of work goes into, but it flowed very smoothly today, and certainly the hours that we spent in these chambers on many occasions, and some of the really tough years where we were multiple days and a lot of outcomes were not what people preferred. But this reflects, again, the body of work that this county does in any given day. And so my thanks to the county employees and to everyone who contributed to this. But I know what goes on over the course of the next 12 months or next 10 months is supported by what we just took action on here today. So thank you so much. So, Supervisor Cerna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as I think I did at the conclusion of our recommended budget consideration in June, I just want to, again, thank you for your decades of very, very careful oversight of our budgets, whether it's recommended or final. You mentioned 28 years, but I think it's probably more like 40 total when it comes to your position as Chief of Staff to your predecessor, and your time, of course, as Supervisor for the 5th District. And I think everyone in this room and those that have come and gone on our executive team understand that, at least from my opinion my perspective is, I've never known anyone that knows our budgets better in the position of supervisor as you. So it's one of the things that I've certainly learned and drawn from during my tenure on the board. And I think, as I kind of tongue-in-cheek commented in June, just because you won't be here next year, at least on this side of the dais, I would hope that some of that is rubbed off on all of us in terms of the import, the consequence of what we do when it comes to arguably the most significant and important exercise that we consider in every June and September, and comes with a lot of impact, and prioritizing how we set policy and use scarce resources to implement that policy for the good of Sacramento County and her residents. I think is certainly no easy task for staff in terms of all the background, all the homework that has to go into a very complex, complicated budget. But suffice it to say, I think I hope that we can all kind of live up to your standard when it comes to budgeting in the years to come, and not deviate from that standard, because I think it's one to be really proud of. And I know you can look back and with a lot of pride, Don, in terms of the decisions you've made, both playing offense and defense when it comes to the budget. So I just want to put that out there and thank you. And again, kind of tongue-in-cheek warn staff that just because he's leaving doesn't mean that you won't be under a magnifying glass next year. So thanks.
Well, Phil, I'm sure you all understand, but I know that the conversation we had way early on was the rule of 3 or 4. And during budget times, it's 3 folks can make decisions regarding, and then anytime outside of the 2, the approved and adopted budgets, it requires 4, and typically it's 5-0 like it was today. And again, certainly kudos to my colleagues, and thank you for the kind comments, Bill. Yep. Ann.
I'm ready to speak if we're done talking about budget. I just want to make a statement about something else, if that's okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, and I'm going to read this because I think it's really important. Because of the significant heat straining the state's energy grid, we would like to ask everyone to continue conserving energy. There is potential for power interruptions to occur this evening unless our community continues to take actions to reduce non-essential power if health allows between 4 and 10 p.m. We could also like to encourage you to subscribe to sacramento-alert.org to receive emergency alerts. I want to extend my thanks to Regional Transit, who is providing transportation to and from our cooling centers. I also want to thank 211, who is providing operators and connecting callers with information and resources on the available cooling centers throughout the community. Members of the public interested in learning more about preparing for electrical outages can visit sacramentoready.org and smud.org. And I also want to thank Paul Lau from SMUD for his partnership. We've been in regular communication over the last couple of days as we manage this heat wave. So thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Well, we're doing our part. We're going to be out of here at 2:40, so.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm going to go home and drop my hair and make a waffle.
And we are also raising the temperature of county buildings at 4 o'clock as well.
You're letting the temperature rise.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
That's right. Well, yes,
You're not
that's
turning on
true.
the heater.
That's right. Better stated. Thank you. Anyway, thank you.
Important announcement. You want to give that the reference number if people were watching, Ann, you said if they wanted to get more information?
Yes. So if you want to, preparing for the outages, you can visit sacramentoready.org and smud.org.
Very good. Okay. Any other announcements, board members? Supervisor Desmond.
Yeah, real quickly, I know everybody's aware of the $25 million proposed in the state budget. That's, I think, currently on the governor's desk right now to provide Sacramento County with additional resources to create shelters for folks specifically camping along the American River Parkway and provide some relief to them and the parkway itself. And so I know Supervisor Cerna has been definitely taking a leadership role on this, but I just want to really add my voice to the chorus that I'd like to see staff come up with a proposal, a plan on not only limitations of that money, how it can be spent, but ideas so we can start having the discussion of where we can possibly site some of these shelters, how we might go about acquiring sites for these shelters. And I think that's a really, I really thank Assemblymember McCarty and Assemblymember Cooley for setting those funds aside for this for a very, very important purpose to help those who are unsheltered and help the Parkway. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Thanks, Rich. Yeah, Supervisor Cerna.
Thank you, and thank you, Supervisor Desmond, for bringing that up. In fact, I had an opportunity to have a Zoom meeting with Assembly members McCarty and Cooley and respective staff, including Chief of Staff to the 3rd District just yesterday. So what I felt compelled to explain on the fly in terms of answering their questions about process moving forward, what I suggested was essentially what you've Supervisor Desmond has just relayed to staff, that I assume we would treat this like a budget where our professional staff would look at the guideposts for the $25 million, the do's and don'ts around how it could be spent or what it can be spent for, and then make some recommendations to this board in whole, and then have the board and the public hear those recommendations and then possibly consider changes, but certainly let our professional staff have the first consideration in terms of the best use for its intended purpose.
Very good. If I could just, Amanda, I needed to ask you a real quick question. I know I raised it in the morning session, but the delineation on the MOU with the Wilton Rancheria, will there be a budget page or somewhere so that future boards will have that and know where those monies are being plotted and when, how they're being utilized, and obviously it'll still be board's discretion as it relates to some of those?
So most of that money is, as you mentioned, discretionary revenue. So I think we would continue to budget for it as we do other discretionary revenue, but we could certainly within the budget have an explanation. And I think we certainly would in the first year, and in years when there are increases, that would be why there's an increase, right?
Okay, yeah, I just need to be able to track that source, because there may be situations that are relevant to given geographical area or not, or there may be programs you may want to tie back to that revenue source. Again, there are 3 areas, 2 in human services, 1 in transportation, that are dedicated revenues, and then the general fund portion of it. So I guess I would offer a suggestion. You've got a lot of pages in here that have specific references. It would just, I think, for public's information, as well as obviously for the board's iteration, and certainly from budgeting, I think it would be helpful to have that. You didn't respond to that because it wasn't a specific request relative to dollars, but I just think it would be a good idea. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Unless there's any other comments, we'll adjourn the session. We next come in next week. Is that all right?
Yes, and congratulations on your final budget.
Okay. All in, all done, all said. We're adjourned. Thanks.